Good evening. It's Monday, October 21st, and this is a meeting of the Southborough Planning Board. The Planning Board is now in session. The first item on the agenda is a discussion item, proposed ADU bylaw, and we have the Zoning Board of Appeals with us here tonight for this discussion. Do you guys want to come up to the desk with the microphone so we can chat?
You have to ask the question. I was told there would be, as I came right from the gym here.
Just, since we have three of us, I think I have to call the meeting to order of the Southborough ZBA. So I'd like to just do that. I'm calling the meeting to order of the Southborough ZBA for October 21.
I can't hear anybody over there.
Okay, sorry. This is David Williams. I'm calling to order the meeting of the Southborough Zoning Board of Appeals for October 21, 2024.
Did you hear that, Colleen? Can you hear us, Colleen?
I thought it was.
That sounded good.
She has a vacant look. I don't think she hears us.
Colleen, can you hear us?
Your speaker might be on because you're getting a reverb there.
I know.
Still happens every year.
It's
My
muted.
11-year-old was here.
Am I still reverbing?
No,
Yeah, Benjamin.
I'm texting her.
Hey,
Oh, now we hear you.
Colleen, do you hear us?
I don't hear you on the video. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. I'm muted on Zoom, but we're on Sam.
That's why I got it on Zoom. How about now? Can you hear us, Colleen? I have you on the phone, right?
Yep, I'm on the phone.
Do I need to call Hassan?
I mean,
Recording stopped.
let me see if I can do something on here.
I'm sorry. I knew it would be a problem. Just find us.
Do you want me to go through this? Walk us through this?
If you'd like to start.
Can you guys say something now?
Can you hear us, Colleen? Can you hear me? No?
Some kind of an echo. It should just be.
Can we put the ADU thing on?
Yeah.
And we'll just go.
Colleen, can you share?
Colleen, can you share the ADU?
I'm gonna shut.
Yes.
So I'm just testing. I'm still reverbing, and I'm muted, and my sound is off.
What about your phone?
That's what I think it is.
You're muted.
You think that's what it is?
Yeah.
Colleen, I'm gonna hang up.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm not.
There it is.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you for your technical support. Now I just need these put up.
Do we have confirmation that people can hear us on Zoom?
Let me look.
I mean, if Colleen's
Because,
dialed in,
Yeah, Bridget said she could hear us.
yeah, I think
She's
it might be
there.
her audio settings.
okay.
Here we go. This is,
So I'll start then.
she has to restart the recording. Colleen, can you please restart the recording?
She can't hear us, right?
She can't hear you. Can she see you in chat? Like, could you put a chat message on?
I'm not sure she'll pay attention to that. Hold on.
Sorry, you guys.
I'm very sorry, yeah, I'm very
What's that?
We really need the 11-year-old here.
Ben would have this locked down in no time.
We wanted to know what it was like on this side.
We have the new car, and we're like, Ben, you need
Okay.
to fix the Bluetooth. Ben, you need to fix the, like. But he sat in there for hours, just like, yeah, I'm like, I don't have time for that.
And Doug Mans is in the waiting room.
Okay.
So we want to elevate
Oh, we
him
want to
too.
elevate him, yeah.
Yep, let me just get to Colleen here. I'm so sorry. I knew this was going to happen. Would you mind? Thank you.
How you doing, buddy?
It's all good. Enjoying, a CBA-free week for the most part.
I can't even see her now, you know what I mean? So I can't tell if she's...
We did.
What's going on?
All right, we'll rest up.
Yeah. I think we're doing garage first.
Yeah, I think we have some
Yeah,
stuff
I think
first.
we're waiting for the garage, like I think a special permit.
Yeah, I'm seeing... Marnie, if you co-host, can you start the recording? Okay.
And then we're gonna get into it on Turnpike, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I might talk about that.
I love the post meeting. You're like, yeah, don't get salty with us. You didn't bring it up.
And we have 120,
Yeah, yeah.
and something flew by 250. Did you see the flyby late this afternoon? Was it 250 now?
Yeah.
Well, if there's an email, I didn't see it.
I don't know when we're meeting on that
No,
next.
that's on the contract.
Let's see if I can reach her sound
Right,
real quick.
right. I don't know when that's coming back. That's not on,
That's not for, I mean,
it's
that's
not for,
more,
that's not for next week.
but that's just,
Right.
we're just on call, because they need to do site plan review for it.
We read through that today.
I didn't,
I felt like,
I saw it, did not go through it.
I'm
Well,
curious
we have
what
some
was
action
that.
here. Marnie's logged in.
Is there a reason we're sitting here?
The recording has to restart.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on one second. We're trying to get it to... I'm so sorry.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
There we go.
And now we need to promote Doug
And co-host
and
Marnie.
co-host Mark. Oh, can you promote Doug?
Thanks, Marnie.
There he is. Successfully promoted.
So David, you guys called your meeting to order, right?
Yeah.
But do we need to do that again if it wasn't recorded? Might
It's
make-
I
Start.
think it was recorded.
It was
think it was?
recording at the beginning, and then
Yeah.
we stopped
I
it.
think so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Recording stopped.
Oh,
Recording in progress.
okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Karina?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Want me to ask Colleen if she's prepared to speak to that? 'Cause-
Sure.
Hey, Colleen,
Yep,
would you like to go through the document for the ADU?
sure.
Okay, thanks.
Can you guys hear me okay in there? Because I don't really hear much.
Yep.
Okay. So the ADU, there really wasn't anything to show. So I pulled some of these off of the mass.gov. And this one here, every page is a little different. This one shows, what a detached unit is, an attached unit, and then you have upper level unit, interior lower unit, which would be the basement, and then the above garage, and then the garage conversion that would also have a door there. So these are the kind that are allowed. Let's see. Can you scroll up just a little more? There you go. So these, so this is August 6, 2024, Governor Healy signed the Affordable Homes Act into law. The Section 8 of the Affordable Homes Act amends the Zoning Act to allow ADUs up to 900 square feet to be built by right in a single-family zoning district. The historic legislation authorized $5.16 billion in spending over 5 years, along with nearly 50 policy initiatives to counter rising housing costs. The new law on ADU is an example of small policy change that will make a big difference. Massachusetts is a leader in finding innovative solutions to our biggest challenges. Rising housing costs and homelessness are not unique challenges just to our state, but we can lead in a way to solving them. You can scroll up. That's a good picture of an ADU back here that's not attached. So right here, an ADU, this is very basic, but maintain a separate entrance, either directly from the outside or through the entry hallway or corridor, shared with the principal dwelling, sufficient enough to meet the requirements of the state building code for a safe egress. Be either no larger than half the gross floor area of the principal dwelling unit or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller. So the max you can do is the 900. Meet municipal restrictions, including but not limited to additional size restrictions and restrictions or prohibitions on short-term rental. This is a good one. If you can, yeah, you got to shrink it up a little bit. There you go. So these are the things that municipalities here may impose reasonable restrictions and requirements for site plan review, Title V requirements, regulations concerning dimensional setbacks, and the bulk and height of structures. And there's also things like short-term rentals. Now, things we cannot do is require owner-occupied for the ADU or principal dwelling, require a special permit or other discretionary zoning approval for the use or rental of an ADU, requiring more than one parking space for an ADU located outside 0.5 miles from the commuter rail station, subway station, and ferry terminal or bus station. Require any parking for an ADU located within a half a mile from the commuter rail station, subway station, ferry terminal, or bus station. So again, those are the things we can't do. You want to scroll up? So these are the benefits. Again, this is right off the mass.gov website. So the property owner benefits by being able to provide an additional rental income for the property owners, which can help offset maintenance and repair costs. Low-cost housing opportunity for adult children and other relatives to remain in their community. It also provides long-term options for seniors, either as an opportunity for caregivers to live close by or to downsize while remaining in their community. The renter benefits add affordable rental units to the housing stock to meet the needs of smaller households. long-term residents can stay in the neighborhood they love and know and work in. The benefits to Massachusetts: increased, much-needed, affordable, and diverse housing opportunities. Also provides accessible housing to seniors or persons with medical needs or disabilities and their caregivers. Compact growth makes use of our existing land use structures and infrastructure, which can be more sustainable and far more economical than building a single-family home on a new lot. ADUs are smaller and utilize less water and electricity, making them a more sustainable housing option. So these are some frequently asked questions. I'm not going to read all of them, but these are right on the mass.gov website, and I should put these up on our website too. Is this the last one that I had?
Thank
Yeah.
you, Colleen.
No problem.
Mr. Stein.
Colleen, thanks a lot for going through that. One thing that I would think is going to come up in any kind of public hearing or town meeting review of this would be what kind of deed restrictions can the town impose? This is a little bit vague and subjective. It just says we can't require owner occupancy. Well, can we restrict, to affordable or, have some kind of cap on appreciation? I mean, there's a lot of things that are standard in terms of deed restrictions on affordable units that I don't see as listed under cannot.
So, yeah, that's a very basic. I've been to a few of these webinars that they've been holding, and you can't put any deed restrictions on these. They can be a rental unit. It's a separate rental unit. It gets sold with the house. You can't split the lot at some point, and you can't make it a condo. Do you have any other questions? I might know off the top of my head.
Yep. As far as condominium, in other words, like establishing an HOA and having basically forming a 2-unit condo association, is that permitted?
I don't think it is, but that's one I'll have to look up. Creating a condo.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
Ms. Houlihan.
Thank you. Thanks, Colleen. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, great.
Ms. DeMaria.
Just wanted to add, or kind of point out a couple of things. I think that Colleen mentioned that the implementation is February 2nd, 2025. So there's a number of towns that have already trying to get the definitions at Section 7 of Chapter 150 of the Act, that you're hearing about towns right now trying to get, at their fall meeting, trying to get the ADU by right in, but really what they're doing is they're putting through the definitions. So we didn't do that, so we'll have to do everything at once. I attended a webinar, Mimi did as well, it was the APA Mass webinar, and there were a lot of Massachusetts town planners that were discussing who's got some great laws, who's got a good bylaw and who's got good definitions. I had jotted a few down, but if anybody wants to see some of those, there are some towns that have already written their bylaws. So I have some of those to share if anybody wants to see it. I mean, we're going to get to all that stuff, but just if you guys are chomping at the bit.
Debbie, one of those is Hudson, right? The town of Hudson?
I had written, yeah, one of them's Hudson. I had Barnstable, Greenfield, and Great Barrington were the 3 that I wrote down. There were a couple other things I found that I just wanted to share. There's no ADUs on commercial property. The question about condo did come up at the meeting I attended. There was an attorney from KP Law. She didn't know the answer to that, so I don't know if that's complicated.
To the
So
question
just
of
to
it-
touch on that, Debbie?
What's that?
Just to touch on that, Debbie?
Yeah.
The condos, they can't be sold separately, so I'm leaning towards the condos won't be allowed.
I think the attorney was also, but I don't think she was willing to put that out there, at least, it was very months ago that we're listening to the webinar. It's just a couple other things I wanted to mention. There's no impact to previous ADUs. So if they're permitted already, they're permitted. There's no impact. There's no restrictions on bedrooms or people. So that's kind of interesting. But of course,
Actually, there is.
it's the Board of Health and how much septic you have, right? That dictates the Title V. And like the physical number of people that could be in.
You said there is, Colleen?
Yeah, I read something just today. It was maximum of 3 people in the accessory unit.
I thought I read the same thing.
So that's not.
Oh, really?
Okay, that's very interesting. And I had one more thing. What towns can do is there could be multiple ADUs on a property, right? And I think,
By special permit.
right, the first is by right, that's correct. The second would be by special permit. So those are just some of the things I wanted to share.
Ms. Braschi?
Thank you. So I look forward to moving forward on this and creating a bylaw that allows additional uses. I did look up a few different towns to see what's going on. Some towns actually had one in place already. Obviously, they're just going to have to tweak it with the new regulations. West Newbury had one. It's very short. It's only a couple pages long. Natick just is working on approving one right now, though obviously Natick is a little bit different than Southborough. But I found very useful information as a guideline. Arlington has one as well, and theirs is actually pretty descriptive. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there for a starting point for us. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I think we can take something that somebody already has and then just gear it towards what we're looking for. And again, I know it's by right, and you're kind of restricted on what you can and can't do, but I think I think it's easy enough to get done prior to town meeting. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do too. I don't think there's, what we have now, although it's special permit, we don't have parking requirements really. We don't have owner, like family member occupancy requirements. What are the other things that aren't allowed anymore? So I think that, I don't think it'll be too difficult. We have to change the definition, like change the accessory apartment to accessory dwelling unit and use that definition, and then everywhere else in the bylaw where that is referenced has to be changed.
I know that Westboro has, I can't remember if it's an ADU or, you know, an access, how they define it, but I know Westboro has it permissible by right, but with certain restrictions on it, so they're going to have to update theirs. But there's a proximity town to Southborough that has existing ADU language. It's my understanding.
Westboro.
At least it did 2 years ago when I had an ADU matter.
Well, and that point too, I know some towns, just to follow up on Lisa's comments, there's a few towns that are literally deleting whatever they have and just taking on the states.
Yeah. But the state doesn't have one, do they?
Sorry, it was Michael Robbins as a member of the zoning board of appeals.
Just so that the.
Oh, of course, sorry.
That's all right. Thanks.
Colleen, does the state have a model bylaw or sample? I couldn't find it. I couldn't
I've
find
been
one.
told there is, and honestly, I haven't seen it, so I can't swear to it, but I know there's a few towns that said that they were doing it that way. So that's some, I'll look into that one too, see if we can't get language.
And the question I had is that they mention residential zones. And that was
Single family.
unclear at the webinar whether that meant any zone that you could put a residence in, or just, like Res A and Res B here. 'Cause
My
then-
understanding is it's just residential zones. So just RA and RB.
Oh, okay.
Well, so to Mimi's point, what about like the downtown district or the newly formed MBTA communities?
So
I
that-
don't think,
That's an overlay.
Yeah.
So if the underlying is A or B, then
Well,
it would apply.
And I'm sorry, but Jesse, the MBTA communities is multifamily, so that won't be affected. You can't do anything about ADUs with that.
So we'll have to look a little bit more, but I would imagine if you allow single-family use in that zone, that would be single-family zone.
So basically anywhere where you're building a single family or have a existing single family,
As a use, right.
You'd have
in the various,
the option of adding an ADU.
yeah, I would think that would be the case. I can't attest to it.
So I think that that's unclear.
Yeah, it is unclear. But it seems like if you have a use that allows single-family, then the single-family could have an ADU
And if
proponent.
you think about the concept, single family is the most restrictive zoning. So this is opening up to more than one family there. That's a big portion of why they did this, to allow more units without cutting off a new lot. Makes sense to me.
I hope the planning board is aware, we did receive a directive from town council. I think we forwarded that to everybody when it came in. So we can revisit some of the highlights that they
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
they put in there. It was August 8th from town council. It's not very long, but it was the Affordable Homes Act summary of legislative changes, and they highlight some of these things. I'm not sure it's all that detailed and inclusive, but it might be a good starting point again, just to revisit.
Karina, can we follow up too, to see if they've made any additions or anything to that document? I would imagine at this point, they're in, a variety of communities. I'm sure they're getting asked the questions about this, and maybe they even have something more,
Yeah,
that might be useful. Thank you.
we can do that.
And Mike, did you say you went to a housing conference, or were going,
I
or?
have one coming up.
Oh, okay.
So I have a symposium that I'm a speaker at for Boston, so Boston Living. And so and this is going to be one of the topics. So it's a situation that I've been really kind of like sinking my teeth into and kind of seeing what other towns are starting to do as far as accessory dwelling units. And the legislature's really clear, and they really, as a baseline, they're looking to add 5,000 to 10,000, and I think that's conservative, additional housing units for the Commonwealth as a result. And so I think it really, in communities specifically like Southborough, where there's not a lot of mixed-use development and it's predominantly single-family use, to enable parents to be able to have that boomerang kid or seniors to have ability to have ADUs pursuant by right. So it's something that I'm continuing to work on because, like I said, I've got a symposium in 2.5 weeks.
So is it your understanding that they're only allowed on single lots with single-family homes?
I think it is, it's almost kind of the reverse. So typically in most zoning, we go with the most restrictive. Like, so if your property was split between two lots, you would be required to follow the more restrictive zoning of the two lots. And my reading and understanding of the statute and the legislature is just the opposite. They go, hey, listen, if there's any question, we want to allow ADUs. So we want to have the more permissible use in those set of circumstances. I think it'll be really interesting. So let's just say in communities that have more typical stacked housing, are you going to allow now an additional, so if you had a 3-family, are you going to allow a 4th unit in the basement? Question mark. And I think those communities are going to have a little bit more pushback and pull, just again, from a safety and inspection perspective. The statute's clear with respect to the size of the unit, up to 900 square feet, so that's going to cap the size of the units, and it also falls under egress. So, you know, you just can't build death traps for these units, which has been the problem for a lot of what I would call Fonzie and Laverne and Shirley apartments, like the basement or the attic apartments, yeah.
Yeah,
Have to have egress.
So,
yeah.
I think everyone here gets that
So-
right. I'm sorry.
I'm certainly old enough, thank you. But I think that's unclear.
I think you're correct. I think this is still in the oven. I think certain towns are going to be challenging that, but the legislature's been really clear that they want to remove restrictions to ADUs.
Right,
On
yeah.
single-family residential lots. I think those stacked dwellings are going to be more a question mark.
Yeah, because on the state website, it says, allows homeowners on single-family lots to add small units.
Exactly right.
So,
Yeah, sorry, David Williams, Chair of the ZBA. So we've approved a number of applications where it's been, I think this is maybe what you're talking about, where it's something else inside the home.
Right.
That's really the question you're asking. If you've done that, can you still have the ADU on another part of the property, right?
yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think the statute, from my reading, is that permission has been granted.
Right, yeah,
You don't get another bite at the apple.
unless the town allows it by
Unless the
special
town
permit.
Exactly, but just from a practical standpoint. Like if you have a home that has an existing ADU, you just don't, I don't think you're allowed by right to get another.
Right. And I think the other part of our bylaw that needs to change is that we have like 5% of the total number of single-family residences or something that nobody's ever kept track of, but
Yeah, so
that has to go out the window.
Our ADU approvals, and it had not been tracked, but it is being tracked now, but I'm
But I
in
think
favor of
that,
removal.
well, I think that, I don't think
Doesn't-
that would
doesn't
fly.
Because it would limit fully.
Yeah,
I had a definitional concern, it's like what, to understand how we have a number of group homes in town, and that's gonna be on a single-family lot. I mean, do they get I mean, I would assume they get an ADU also, maybe for the caretaker? 'Cause we have unusual, yeah, I don't know.
so I think that's unknown, because I think that there's conflicting information on the state EOHLC's website.
And in some of our, it come up, it actually what drove it on the ZBA side was the 5% rule to a great extent. And then, I don't know if we can control or want to control rental units, not part-time, maybe seasonal rental, Airbnb units.
Short-term rental, I think that would probably be a good idea, yeah,
The short-term rental.
That was
as-
permissible.
yeah.
Restrictions on short-term rentals is
I don't even know
permissible.
how you would mandate, it's like the 5% rule, I don't know where the mandate would come in to control it. Through a deed restriction. Excuse me?
Through a deed restriction.
But someone just said earlier, we could not put a deed restriction.
That's true.
Is it sort of a catch-22? But it's just discussion.
So short-term rentals can be prohibited, or
Define
something.
it.
It's my understanding that short-term rentals are,
Define,
Yeah.
it's really more of a definition, define a group home, define a short-term.
Well, there is a definition of short-term rentals that is referred to in the statute.
Yeah. In our zoning code,
No, Mass General Law.
but not our zoning code.
and just,
No.
I think specifically deed restrictions are inherently problematic with the overall guidance from the Commonwealth. And I think towns that have done that previously, say Grafton, for example, that's been an issue legally. That's my understanding with
I
Grafton.
didn't say who I was. Did I say who I was?
I was trying
I'm
to
going to
remind you.
correct my, I'm Doris Cahill, member, ZBA. Oops.
And Lara had asked whether we wanted to look into doing a special permit for doing larger than the 900 square feet or 50% of the residential home. And I don't know how you feel about that. The only thing about that is if we follow the statute, it only requires a majority at town meeting. But if we did that, it would require the 2/3 supermajority at town meeting to pass the code.
So I have a thought about that. I like your thought about it's going to be too hard to pass it. But a lot of the homes have the square footage. Maybe they can opt to be a two-family, but they may be a 2,500 square foot home, and they'll divide the top from the bottom. So I think we would run across people wanting to go over the 900 square feet. I think it could be a real potential issue that came up for somebody wanting ADU. Is, well, I've got 1,100 square feet, because the house divvies up that way. I guess they could say something's a garage or a laundry room, or.
Yeah, I think
We had
it's,
some unusual ADU where they had a section, they did a little bit of section because of the 25% rule, and I think they made that an extra piece of the garage or something. So you start to get unusual configurations.
I mean, it seems like a logical thing that you would allow only through special permit, but I think you've got a good point that getting 2/3 of town meeting to approve that is probably going to be a big challenge. I would expect, knowing the
Well-
way other zoning code
Yeah,
changes.
it's never easy.
And also to Doris's point that we have to be careful, is it gross floor area as opposed to just straight
Right.
square footage? Because often, stairwells and storage areas don't count, and they can manipulate, applicants can manipulate that as
I think it's a
well.
good point.
Well, I think the baseline is, what's the configuration, which isn't that hard to understand in Southborough, the configuration of the houses. There are smaller homes. I had the opposite concern on some of the ADU, where there was a minimum or an outside structure, and they couldn't meet it. They had to come for a variance. An existing outside structure, you're not going to take it down. You said take the barn. I think we had one of those.
Yeah.
The barn, the shed. It was some other building on the property, and they wanted to make it an ADU, but it wasn't 25% of the.
It was bigger.
It was bigger,
Yeah.
which is the same problem. So there's
Yeah.
a couple of ways we've run across it.
Right.
Yeah, so where do they go is the
Right, who wants
So
to
this,
renovate?
so this would be the same problem.
same problem,
Here.
different animal,
Yeah.
separate building, still ADU. Main house was only 1,100 square feet. The ADU was bigger. And a variance was asked, a special permit was asked for.
I think Doug is,
I've got-
Doug raising his hand.
Oh,
Doug.
did you have anything you wanted to add, Doug?
No, I'm good at this point. Is my hand raised? I don't think my hand was raised.
No, just didn't want you to feel
Okay.
left out.
No. Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
He's not shy usually.
I do think that the biggest challenge with a lot of the, for Southborough specifically, is going to be the septic. Because again, older homes that have now what I would say is undersized septic, so let's say they have a 1,000-gallon tank as opposed to a 1,500-gallon tank, is the town going to require a redevelopment or replacement of that smaller tank to meet the ADU question mark? Because that's going to be, again, that'll be fairly cost prohibitive. So I think that's a concern that I think Southborough wants to really kind of take into the grist mill and figure that out as well. Because again, you have those older septic tanks that are undersized for today's code, Title V codes, but at the same time, it's just not, that's not an inexpensive fix.
But I could add to that, that as long as the leaching area itself is sized for the number of bedrooms and the system is functioning, I think the Board of Health has some ability to say it's okay.
Okay.
I think if the system fails, then they might be required to,
Absolutely.
Upgrade.
That makes sense to me.
but there are 4-bedroom septic systems with a 1,000-gallon tank because they were built.
That's
certain
exactly my point.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So if we wanted to add an ADU to that, you'd be like, well, no, you can't because it's undersized, it's pre-existing non-conforming now.
Yeah,
Oh, we're going to require you to build a bigger septic because you're adding this ADU.
yeah. I think the leaching field itself is what dictates if it meets the number of bedrooms,
So,
so. But I could, I'm just,
No,
that's my
but
guess,
again, is that a stone as opposed to a concrete? Because you've got some older systems in town.
Yeah.
Just to move to a slightly different area, there was some question, and it was shown in Colleen, is it Colleen's slides? Yeah. In Colleen's slides, that these are affordable units, and then there was some discussion through some emails. Maybe it was with Kathy Cook, I'm not quite sure. That the public needs to know that you don't have to make it an affordable unit, but it does add, definitely, did a little bit of research on, to our affordable units stock. It does.
There is an issue with that.
Yep.
The affordable units, to actually get on the affordable housing inventory, these would have to be put into the lottery,
Right.
so the people that live there would have no control over who lives there.
Yeah, I think that was just, maybe it was you and me, Colleen, and maybe Kathy Cook was in the thread too. Yeah, I get that point entirely, but there, maybe those who want to put it out for affordable, so it's just important the public know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they,
You
so
go into
you,
the lottery.
they could, but I don't think we can require that.
Right.
And,
No,
and,
awareness
and it's,
of it,
it's a fairly heavy lift for a homeowner, because they have to follow all the same regs as you would for like a 40B for the affordables, going through the state.
Yeah, the language is really important, though, because it's the, I think, what is it called? The Affordable Homes Act. So you hear the word affordable, but what's being permitted is accessory. So there's no requirement that it be affordable. These could be market rate rentals. So
Right.
Right. But I think,
there's just a dynamic in the language used.
well, I think the thought is that they'll be less expensive than the million-dollar homes.
By limiting it to 900 square feet.
That's it.
It's almost inherently got to be,
Yeah,
That's where the language is important, though.
yeah,
Because people hear the act and they go, well, it's affordable housing.
yeah.
Well, yeah, if it's less than 900 square feet, it's going to be more affordable than a single-family house.
Right, right. Well, the same with the MBTA, that was
That's exactly.
marketed as affordable, and there was, other than the 10%, there was, yeah.
Exactly right.
At least, and the affordable has an interesting definition. It's 80% of a very high rental rate. So how would we address or think about further, and maybe I'm wrong on this, is our non-for-profit properties with housing on them? They always bypass zoning, right?
I don't,
Whoops. I don't mean it that way exactly. I'm just trying to understand, do we have to have special reach out at all for the non-for-profit housing units that are sitting on the various private schools? Those are houses.
great
It's a
Is that
I'm just
still
thinking out of the box, and we're all
single-family
shaking our
Say
heads.
if it is still
And I'm not trying to
single-family
sound,
zone.
I'm not-
That would be the
I'm trying to
question.
make it funny. Just, like, yeah.
so that's a good question. I think that goes back to, are these accessory only on single-family homes?
Well, those are single-family homes. Are they, is all the not-for-profit properties, we have some on Main Street too, through the historical area, or through the.
Yeah, I don't know.
By individual. So you don't have to be owner-occupied, I'm just talking it out,
Well, so this would be under 40A Section 3, which is like the Dover Amendment, so that they would have to comply with this under that like they would anything else. So they wouldn't bypass an ADU bylaw.
So they can put ADUs on the property.
Well, I don't know. It depends on what the property is. If they have if there's more than one unit on there, I don't think so. So these are all questions that need to be answered.
We're just,
Yeah, Karina, you said something about bedrooms. You get, when it's an affordable unit, you get to count all the bedrooms in the homes for, the profit homes where,
That's
in an
for-
ADU.
Yeah,
Go
that's
ahead.
for the Department of Mental Health and the Department of, there's another department that relates to, confidential locations that count on the subsidized housing inventory based on the number of bedrooms they have for each occupant, because they need staffing to assist with each occupant. So those are special cases that are certified
But-
through the state. as,
And that's one thing that, you know, they might have workers there for 24-hour, you know, care. Could see how that develops.
well, for example, in town, there might be a single-family home with 4 bedrooms, and each bedroom is dedicated to a patient or someone who lives there. The caretakers come daily and leave, so there may be opportunity there if they had an ADU for a caretaker.
Right.
I don't know, that's detail. We'll have to figure that out, see what it,
So what's the next step? Should we come up with a sample draft?
Yeah,
And
that was.
send it to
my
you
question.
guys?
Are you planning this, are you planning public hearings for the language, or are you just?
Oh, yeah, we'd have to.
Yep, okay.
And hopefully we can get it to annual town meeting in April.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, if you have a draft, our board, clearly we have members who are very interested in it, would be certainly willing to take a look at it and provide feedback.
Perfect. Anything else on this?
Do we have a stopgap for, is February 2nd? Devin, you were discussing, is February 2nd a weekend application for an ADU? Yeah, okay.
That's the question, what happens in between?
Well, so I think that our bylaw becomes unenforceable on February 2nd,
That's it.
Yeah.
which, you know, thank you, state legislature, for passing this in August,
Yeah.
With-
And then putting a date of implementation.
having February, which no one has their annual town meetings by then, and everyone's going nuts trying to get MBTA through, but thank you.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Just purely action item. Who's taking the draft? I'm not volunteering.
You framed that perfectly. By the way.
I did MBTA.
Who
I'm-
besides me is drafting?
I will unless someone else wants to do it. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder.
Second.
I'd also like to, Colleen's been doing a lot of research on this, transitioning from the MBTA Communities project that she was working on. So she'll be a really big assistance, and I'll help
I was
and
just
jump
going
in
to
as
try
well.
and steal one. That's what I'm good at. I was just going to try and steal one from someplace. I'm good at graft.
And again, Hudson said that they had one that they were happy with, was working.
So the intent is our definitions only, no zoning code?
Oh, yeah, zoning code. So it'd be,
Whole thing.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
but we have to change the definition and change accessory apartments everywhere in the code.
Yep.
It's everywhere, by the way.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
All right, another question is just timeline, working backwards from town meeting, the warrant article, when that's due, and then when we're kind of going to be thinking about collaborating, because I know everyone has so many things on our agenda.
Does this will require a public hearing?
Right.
like-
So are we thinking in 2024, or are we going to think in early 2025 to kind of start the process?
When's our next meetings?
We have
My
3
guess
meetings
is
left.
that November 4th is a meeting. November 25th, I believe, is the next meeting after that, which is the Monday of Thanksgiving, which a lot of people usually can't make.
And then December 2nd.
And then
What-
we have December 16th.
Didn't we change
The
that?
16th.
I thought we
Sorry,
changed it.
just one
Oh, I'm
sec,
sorry,
please.
you're right, we did change
Are
it.
we talking about the start of the public hearings?
December
Start of this process, so we
Well, we're going to
actioned
start the
Mimi.
draft now.
Right, but
Yeah.
we have zoning boards willing to collaborate, so I'm just trying to put a timeline together so we can
December
have like a
2nd.
working draft, so we
Yeah.
know what,
I mean, I would think that
And
the
when to
target
expect.
is for starting the public hearings mid-January. So on that basis, we'd be submitting a draft in the next 2 weeks to, what do you say?
The next 2 weeks?
How hard can it be?
see, isn't it good I asked the question? Just saying.
Well, I
Colleen
mean,
is also
now, the
working
ball
on
is kind of rolling now, so
Yeah.
I would think over the next 2-3 weeks, we would generate a draft to submit to the ZBA. You guys would have a discussion item on one of your November or December meetings, and then by that time, you'd be kicking it back, or, your revisions to the draft to us, and then we'd go start the public hearings in January.
So can I just ask Jesse, why would we not consider doing it in December, just to add an extra public hearing? I don't know the level of interest there might be from the public
For
on
an
this.
April town meeting, it seems,
Again, you tell me. I mean, I've only
I-
sat here on zoning changes for MBTA that was 18 months in the making. So, I mean, what would the typical timeframe?
This should be
if
easier.
we're ready, I
So
would
I would
agree
s-
with you
I-
if we were,
Okay.
in the event that we were ready and had something ready for town council and all that kind of stuff, but
So in
just
lieu
trying to
of,
be realistic, given,
in lieu of that, then, I assume we're going to be discussing the drafts and everything prior to holding public hearings. So maybe we could at least have it maybe on the December 16th, maybe not a public hearing, but just, again, just to get pre-feedback, because you just never know what you never know.
I would think this would be on every agenda
Okay.
subsequent from here on out.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's a high bar to make April town meeting. I'm just going to put it out there, but let's try. I mean, if it
We've
gets
dealt with
September,
worse.
I mean, it's not good.
Yeah.
You-
This is a little.
Do the job right, and that's what I think. It's a high bar to get it.
My worry is if we don't do that, Doris, that there's nothing on the books then, and nothing's enforceable. So I
it's
think we're
worse
kind
to
of,
have nothing.
yeah, we're bound to have to try to do something is better than nothing at this point.
The funds,
Okay, so what I really meant to say was, it's just a high bar, that's it. I'm not saying I'm not going to put I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone, and it's just the process as to getting it, then we got to get back from legal, then we got to write it, and then it's got to still get voted on in town meeting. And these votes have been close lately, if there's a misunderstanding.
are there residual funds that we had put aside for MBTA mailings that we could apply to ADU? Because I do think that education and awareness and outreach to people make a big difference. Can we
To that-
investigate it?
Should have some room.
To
but-
that note, Marty, I've been getting things from MAPC and CHAPA. They have the technical assistance again.
Then
So we
should
might be able
apply
to take-
for it.
Oh, they
Yeah.
have it for ADU too?
Let's
But
do
that
it.
Yeah,
technical
well-
assistance doesn't necessarily include, public outreach and forums, and, mailings and such like that. It's more like in-kind services that they provide to assist you. It's not like they give you a
Right.
grant for $10,000 and say, here, go use it for ADU. What they do is they'll assist you with their expertise. But I think we should have some budget for some mailings.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think we should think about that.
Carry some zoning amendment budget.
Josie, he's got it.
I'll look into that and confirm how much we have to use for that.
Okay, so I'll get cracking on that.
I'm
Any-
glad you volunteered.
Anything else? Anything else? Anybody else have any comment on
I didn't have any.
ADU?
It's a point of order. Why don't we close the meeting then?
Yeah, I was just waiting to see. I don't know, Doris, did you have anything else you wanted to add or raise?
No, I think we're loaded.
Okay. All right, yeah, then, yeah, we do need to have,
Oh,
speak
yeah,
for yourself.
I'm going to, that was funny. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn our little meeting.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna make a
Second.
Okay. Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All in favor, respond with aye. Opposed, nay. Doris?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Williams, aye. And Doug?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Apparently.
See you in 3 days. We meet all the time now.
Thank you for coming.
There are no
It's
hands
very
raised.
helpful.
Take care.
Super helpful.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, 250 Turnpike Road, Contractor's Yard, major site plan approval.
Would you like me to give you just a quick update before we go forward?
Yeah.
So if you recall, we had public hearing number 3 on October 7th. a meeting that was added to the planning board's regular schedule in order to help expedite the permitting of this contractor's yard building major site plan approval. At that time, the applicant also agreed to extend the action deadline for the planning board to November 8th, which follows the November 4th regularly scheduled meeting. Let's see here. On October 14th, we received Fuss and O'Neill's follow-up review on their second submission, which was provided to the applicant, the planning board, and to conservation. On October 18th, that was Friday, at noon, we received submission number 3, hard copies and PDFs shortly before that. We close at noon. Attorney Banan, just to remind you.
I know very well.
So we were able to distribute the plans this morning to the planning board members, PDF, and some of you, I was able to get you the hard copy by this afternoon. And it's already been submitted to Fuss and O'Neill for follow-up review. And it also went out to town departments as all revised submissions go out. So we'll be waiting to hear back from town departments as well. The submission included a waiver request letter and a set of revised plans dated October 14th. However, it didn't include a response to the Fuss and O'Neill comments. Typically, industry standard, we would have a follow-up response letter from you addressing the comments that still remain. It's my understanding that the majority of the Fuss and O'Neill comments were at the discretion of the planning board, but there were 2 outstanding comments related to special permit for lower impact development threshold and verifying that the footings for the fence that's proposed over the detention basin, infiltration basin to the east side, if the fence footings along there would impact the underground drainage structure. I know there was some confusion in the comment because you thought it was near the gate, that the footings, but the details in the plans did include a detail of the fence footing and some notes to the elevations of the underground structure and the footings, but there wasn't a clear response to the Fuss and O'Neill letter on those 2 issues. So usually we'd get a response so we can close out that letter and Fuss and O'Neill can say it was addressed or not. So that was my findings today.
Okay. So we received these today. I didn't have a chance to go through them. The public didn't. We usually send things out to department heads and other boards and committees. They obviously didn't. So this definitely wasn't within the requirement of 7-day prior. To me, seeing as this is a public hearing and the public has had no opportunity to view these plans prior to the hearing, this is a constructive request for a continuation to me. And our regulations require materials submitted after the deadline will not be heard or considered at a meeting out of respect for the board, the applicant, and the public process unless permitted by the board. So, Mr. Stein.
So are we allowed to, I mean, I guess, are you saying that we're not allowed to ask questions at this point, or?
That would be up to the board.
Okay, so each individual board member may ask questions if they choose?
Well, it's up to the board whether the board considers this a constructive request for a continuation, or if you want to continue on.
Well, I do, yeah, I would have to agree with the chair that based on the time frame for receiving the materials, it certainly constitutes a constructive request for continuation. But having said that, I'd be, curious to hear if you're open to answering questions.
Of course.
I second the chair and Jesse. I do think, it's really hard to review a plan when you just receive it and not knowing the changes. So, again, I would have would like to ask a couple of questions, but would defer to the rest of the board.
I agree as well, but I also think we should open up to some discussion, because I'd also like to hear from the applicant.
Ditto.
Okay.
We're doing the best we can. We wanted to respond to Fuss and O'Neill, and they had sent their comments last Monday. And so by filing at noon on
So
Friday.
did you introduce yourself?
No, not yet.
Mimi, before we go on, can I just add one thing to my ditto? Sorry, that I meant to say. Never mind. I'll hold my ditto, keep my ditto, and then I'll just wait, because I do have questions and comments as well.
Okay.
I think so that there's not, again, for the record, I'm Brian Charvel, the Chief Operating Officer and General Counsel for Ferris Development Group, here as counsel for the applicant, FD 250 Turnpike Road. And I'm joined by George Bannon, my associate. And to your point, Madam Chair, in the interest of the public having a chance to see the materials that were filed on Friday, let's just continue this to November 4th, and we'll pick it up then. That's the board's next hearing date, or next meeting date.
Okay. So you don't want to answer any questions?
No, but since there's concern about public notice, let's just talk about it on the 4th. We're happy to answer questions, but if notice is important, we agree with that, let's talk about it on the 4th.
So I think the board wanted the ability to ask questions.
If you think that notice has been adequate for your audience, let's do it.
I don't think it is, but the board wanted to ask questions.
So I guess if we're going to discuss whether or not it's appropriate to ask questions, I mean, the materials are in my possession. So as a board member, I feel whether the public has reviewed the materials or not is not necessarily impactful on whether or not I want to ask a question. I mean, the materials are going to be, and I'm going to, you just basically agreed to the continuance, so. Anyway, that's a long way of starting a question. Regarding the lid, so there's an area that's marked with blue dashes on the plan. I'm assuming that that is to sort of, be within 1 acre to get the waiver from lid, right?
No. What it does
Okay.
is it measures the area where soil disturbance will occur on the site as part of this site plan.
Okay. Did you see, I didn't see your response yet to F&O's comment on that. They basically said, we're not sure that, they basically said, we're not sure we agree.
And
Where would I find in your current packet the response to that?
We did not include responses to F&O's
Okay.
most recent, because, just so if I can elaborate, they've left it within the board's discretion to act on each comment at this point.
Yeah, I mean, lid is something historically we've,
And I can
kind
tell
of
you, I
held the
mean,
line to, so.
we have a calculation on the plan that shows that it's less than 1 acre of soil disturbance.
Okay, so that's definitely something I'm going to be reviewing.
It's on the site layout plan,
Okay.
and then the
What
top,
page is that?
that is S2. And it's in
Oh, okay.
blue, and it says limit of work, area to be altered,
Gotcha.
43,400 square feet.
Okay. So that's so close to an acre that, that's going to be something the board's going to look at, I would imagine, and, make sure that that meets our criteria for waiving lid. I was glad to see that the photometrics were revised. Thank you for addressing the lights bill. Appreciate that. And that's all I have right this moment. Thank you.
Hello. I also had just the same question looking at the blue lines. It just looks awkward, and I think you're 160 square feet away from an acre, so it's really challenging in creative math in the sense when you look at this. That's my perspective. Particularly as you've kind of drawn around the little island lots, it's really hard to believe that that specific area, you wouldn't have 160 additional square feet impacted in this entire lot to qualify for a lid. So that's just one comment. I was also just curious, the parking spaces are labeled as 9 feet, and we have a 9.5 foot parking requirement. So there's no waiver request for parking requirement.
The parking you see there is existing. So we're not changing the existing parking.
But this is a major site plan review, right? Doesn't it have to comply with our revised parking? So if it's a major site plan, you have to comply with our parking requirements or ask for the waiver. And I just didn't see the waiver come in.
Well, I can, if that's the position of the board, I can certainly ask for a waiver because they are existing parking spots. We're not changing them.
Right, but this is a major site
No, I
plan
understand.
review. So I think from our perspective, we have rules and policies in place for how you submit. And if there are other things that's right now, they're non-conforming to our current. And if it's a major site plan, you have to conform to our current or at least ask for a waiver. That's my perspective. In looking at D5, which is just the project overview, it was just a matter of like just updating this because it's not, it doesn't ring true with all the other calculations in the rest of the document. So like the second note talks about single phase is expected to last from late summer 2023 into the fall of 2024. We're well past that. Total site alteration will be approximately 41,500 square feet or 0.9 acres, so that calculation's changed. The top note right after project description. So my question is, there needs to be continuity or consistency in all of that.
Can you just tell me the exact reference point on that?
Yeah, it's literally the first two. So the first one, the second sentence states, single phase and it's expected to last from late summer 2023 into the fall of 2024. Total site alteration will be approximately 40,000 square foot or 0.9 acres. Let's see, what else did I have in here?
So the notes are not consistent
with
what's happening.
Correct. And
Yeah.
so my question, if this is a major site plan application, we just need complete continuity and consistency. So we don't have other references, because if it comes up later and they point to this, well, this is the actual, for whatever reason, it's different. So it's just my own.
Right, everything has to line up for the project you're in.
What else did I see? Park of the 37 spaces. Already brought that up. Yeah, I think it was what mostly concerned me, though, was the closeness, and that was at the prior calculation, which I had reviewed in detail, which was less than this. It wasn't 43,400, it was 41,500. So now I think we're really eking up close to that lid. Those are my only comments.
Mr. Maria?
Hi, and welcome. My questions have been answered, so I don't have any more comments. Thank you.
Ms. Brascio?
Thank you. Thank you for coming. A couple quick comments. Some of mine have been answered. One of the things we had talked about at the last meeting was the berm and the driveway coming in. Again, we talked about how that would streamline a process of having to come back. So I'd kind of still like to see that.
It's actually in the change has been made on the plan, Ms.
It has.
Braccio. If
I missed
you
it.
go to S2,
Okay.
and you'll notice a notation in the southwestern corner of the lower level parking lot that reads, remove existing berm between these points for future development. There was an existing light pole that was kind of blocking the proposed future access to the 40B development, which has been also removed on the lighting plan.
Okay, so, again, I'm just seeing this, so
understand.
which part of the berm would you be,
It says, there are two arrows pointing.
got it, okay,
You
I
got
see it now, okay. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, is that within the blue boundary?
No,
for
it's
soil
outside.
disturbance?
No.
We're talking
So
right
that
here.
would probably need to be added to the,
We can
Right.
add it.
Right here.
Okay. Are you good, Jesse? Yep. Okay. Nope, that's fine. And then my only other question was, I know that there was a lot of outstanding questions going back to the August 19th meeting. Again, I just got the plan, so I didn't specifically have the opportunity to go back. I know Ms. Luttrell, and Mimi, you could probably speak better to the questions that you had and whether they've been addressed. And again, I have it if you want to see the sheet, what your questions were from that date.
I also have a list too that we can,
Okay, well, I kind of highlighted Mimi's. I just want to make sure, as if we're putting it off to the 4th, that we're making sure that all the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the approved site plan from December of 2022, the parking spaces were 9.5 feet wide, and now they're 9. So it wasn't existing.
Well, the spaces aren't changing, so if they were 9.5 feet in the 2022 site plan, either there's an error in the measurement on this site plan, which we'll check, or they were incorrectly measured on the 2022 site plan. I'm unsure, but the parking spaces are existing. We're not proposing to add any or remove any.
Have they been striped?
I believe so, yes.
They're the same stripes as pre-existed 2022, I believe.
Oh, oh.
so you have to make sure that what you're proposing, if it's an existing condition, that's what you're
Of course,
showing.
we'll double check on the,
And what you're proposing, and if it's not, you have to ask a waiver. Okay, you got to keep it all in order, because with a prior site plan, you had an existing condition and you have a site plan, and now you have an existing condition and a site plan.
And I have the same concern on lid. So there's the berm that's not included in the blue hatch mark. There's landscaping that's not included that requires disturbance. So it's looking like you're approaching the lid.
could you point out where the landscaping that's proposed to be disturbed is? That's not in the limit of work.
Ian, could you turn to the site plan, to the landscape plan, please? I think it's the last plan sheet in the plan set. Just to get you started. See right here?
To the south of the fence.
See these arborvitaes that you've proposed for screening?
Thank you.
Okay.
And some of those look to be in the 20-foot no-touch.
Here at this end.
We'll take a look at it.
You might want to be aware of that. I also think there's some shrubs along here that aren't really located yet, but are proposed to be installed. You have a note right here, right, that says notes that 10, I
Those
can't
are
read it.
per the 2022 major site plan?
I don't know.
Yeah, but
No, they
they're
are.
not-
They are?
Yeah, but they're not in there yet.
So they're not there, but they'd be disturbed. Also, just to add to Mimi's comments there, that, Colleen, can you go to the site plan? I think it's S2. That's good, right there. Let's see, so, on your site plan here, it's kind of hard to see here, but notice, you have several locations of light posts that you're going to be removing and relocating.
Mm-hmm.
So those are foundations that you have to take out and then build new foundations, right? For the light posts, I think they're 12 feet high. I believe they would have concrete foundations,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. So that's considered construction as well. So you have the berm down here. You have landscaping down here. You have landscaping here. You have various light locations. I believe there is some change around the building here too. At the new garage doors, you changed the landscaping, or you're proposing to change the landscaping. So there might be an area here that also triggers that. Right down here, you have a fence. That's on your existing conditions plan, right here, right? And I believe this fence gets extended and goes around the corner to tie into the gate, yet your limit of disturbance doesn't quite include that. So your existing fence, I think that's on the existing conditions plan. You might want to check that spot too, right there. You might be cutting back the fence from existing conditions, but you're turning a corner right here. And that requires a post in the ground when you turn a corner or change direction of a fence, right? That's that. Then this fence that's here, can you confirm that's existing? And it's into the tree line, so are there is it going through the this tree area?
That is
Are the trees
existing.
still there? Was anything cut down? Oh, so that fence was there prior to the prior major site plan?
No, it was there as a result of the 2022 site plan.
That's the fence that was supposed to go along the parking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that fence was installed down here instead, so it's not in the right spot, but you didn't have to clear trees to put that fence in there? I'm not sure. Just something you should look at so that you can answer that question. So on the existing conditions plan, and these are just comments to help you so you can clean up the plan so that we can get closure. On the existing conditions plan, here on your site plan, you show an existing septic tank at the front of the building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on your existing conditions plan, it's not on there. So if it's existing, you should put it there because it's confusing. It does say existing on your site layout, but it should be on the existing. And you don't show the existing line to the D box down to the leaching area that you're keeping. And then I think you're proposing septic tank and pump chamber for the new building right down here. I think those are new, right? Right here in this little corner, you have a new septic tank and a pump chamber proposed.
The septic tank should be existing. Part of it will be decommissioned. The only thing that's going to be added that's new is a vent.
Well, I think on your septic plan that you submitted, it indicates that those are new structures. This one's old, and your D boxes are staying, and your leaching trenches are staying, and you're abandoning the D box right here, which is not within the limits of your disturbance, okay? But your new D box is, so you kind of drew your line around it, but right here, there's a D box that's getting abandoned, so you should check with James Tetro and see, you might not know the answer to that because he's not here, but how are you abandoning that D box? Are you digging it up, or are you cutting the pipe off somewhere else so it's not effective? It's unclear. I hope you don't mind, I just want to make sure they have all the feedback that I've seen. We talked about the lights. On sheet D5, this is a pretty easy one, you say that there are no waivers requested. So you might want to check your notes on D5. In the bottom right corner, it says waivers, and it says no waivers requested, but you are requesting waivers. And you might want to list them there or add to your list, especially about the parking, if you're going to do that.
Is it okay if we provide you a waivers list like we just did, instead of including it on
Yeah.
D5? Okay.
Yeah, just so we have a
We'll just
record.
remove that and
Because
then
it gets
provide you.
included in
Sure.
the decision, and I have to write the decision and itemize them. So I need to know the section you want the waiver from and why, the reason why, and then the planning board will determine if they grant it or not. They vote on each one. And that's part of the decision. Let's see, we talked about the arborvitae's already on the bottom. So your sign, Colleen, if you can go to the site plan S2. So in the prior major site plan application, you were going to reuse the sign that was like 6.5 by 6.3 feet or something like that, which is like 40 square feet, right? So the new sign that you're proposing up here is 150 square feet, which would require a special permit from the zoning board because it's not compliant in the industrial zone, right? And that's not a difficult thing to get, but it just requires a permit. And we don't have a sign detail, so when you change a sign for major site plan, you're supposed to provide a sign detail. It's part of the list in 174-10. And I just caution too, because the sign post appears to be on the property line, but overhangs into state right-of-way. And I know that sign has already been installed, I think, right? That sign is there. So right now, it's a sign that doesn't have a permit, and it may be encroaching. So you just might want to check if Mass DOT requires anything, if it overhangs the property line. Okay. And then there may be other things, but that's the list I came up with quickly looking at your plan this morning. And I want to just point out that in section 174-13.3 for lower impact development, that there's a definition called disturbed area, and it says an area man-made or natural where the existing condition has been or is proposed to be altered. So the existing condition is proposed to be altered. The threshold exemption for a lid indicates, and this is in section 174-13.3D, exemptions, any activity that will disturb an area less than 1 acre. So any activity that will disturb an area less than 1 acre would not trigger it. But your definition for disturbed area is, and I repeat, an area man-made or natural where the existing condition has been or is proposed to be altered. So existing condition could be if you're adding or taking away berm, if you're adding landscaping or changing lighting location, or say you're loading dock striping over here, right? You kind of left that out. So I just recommend that you just revisit that, what is in that blue line of disturbance to make sure that it includes everything. And then it's up to the planning board to determine if it will require, based on that feedback, a special permit for lid to also be submitted. Okay. And I think just one last note is that the waiver letter that you emailed me, right? It does say that you emailed it to the chair. So you didn't, I did.
Thank you.
But if you say it, you should kind of, like, we don't mind, if you do say that, just, or say through me to the chair or something. Just so for the record.
Sure.
When we go. It's not the end of the world. But.
So I have a couple of things.
All right, sorry. I just wanted to clarify those things. Okay.
Note number 18, you did put any tree or vegetation removals shall be in coordination with project landscape architect and planning board, but it requires approval of the planning board, not just in coordination with.
That's on the landscape plan, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And you have, on the landscape plan, you have landscaping that's not on the site? So I don't,
Can you point to it, please?
Colleen, can you go to the landscape plan, please? It's the very last sheet, right here. See down here? So this is off property, and for some reason you're carrying it over, and this is like proposed. Do you know if this is included in this chart?
It is.
It is.
So that's kind of off property, so.
It's off property.
Yeah, I think your property line is right. It's hard to see on this plan,
It is.
but it goes over here somewhere, yeah.
We included those trees for the benefit of the neighbors to increase the screening towards the project.
And we're happy to address it privately with them, but we were trying to do the right thing and respond to their concerns and add a visual green barrier in a way that it would be most effective.
But we're reviewing a site plan, and we have control, and we can enforce what goes on the site. We have
Understood.
nothing off the site.
We'll take it off and work on it directly with the neighbors.
I mean, if you provided an exhibit or a sketch or something separate from this and saying, this is what we're proposing off property to help
No, that's all right.
mitigate.
No, we'll just.
I would,
That's-
I would
Neighbors.
have to talk to town council and see
To
how
see
we
if
would
it-
do that.
So probably best to.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, we'll take it off in the next iteration.
Otherwise, it appears like it's a part of the approval, for off-site.
If I may,
Just one second, I'm looking to see if I didn't really have a chance to go through this, but I'm trying to see if, yeah, I think that's all I have for now. Yes, sir. Can you pass that back to us? Yes, sir.
John Palmer, 131 Parkerville, one of the abutters of 250 Turnpike. So to Brian's point just now, they did have Fred Harvey and myself in to meet with them to discuss what they're proposing in way of landscape screening to address the concerns that we raised around having clear line of sight to the parking lot and to the building that's being proposed and that sort of thing. So they met with us this afternoon, and I was in favor of what they're proposing in way of screening, landscape screening, to help improve the sight lines to the property. And then furthermore, I guess my point would be, I want to see this get permitted. I made this point last time around as well. I want to see this get permitted because, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of things, this is a better use of, or promotes a better use of the property than the current use of the parking lot. The current use of the parking lot is unsightly, to say the least, and I think this would promote a better use of the parking lot in keeping with the self-storage concept that's been developed for the building.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Let me check the,
Oh, now that I think of it. So the reason for the waiver that you had said for that 20-foot landscape buffer was that there's existing vegetation there. If that's going to be used as to comply with that landscape buffer, we need to know what that is. They need to be called out.
I'm
Those-
sorry, maybe I'm not understanding. What do you mean, what that is?
So you said in the reason for the waiver that the 20-foot landscape buffer wasn't needed because there's existing vegetation there.
Yes.
I would need to know what that
It's the grass
existing...
pavers shown on the landscape plan. And if I may, I'm asking for the waiver. Our position is that we adhere to this provision. I understand you and I are going to have differences of opinion. But to move forward, I've asked for a waiver. And with the waiver, coupled with the proposal of the addition of trees to screen the neighbors from the contractor's yard, we would hope this board would accept the waiver and move on.
what are you saying, George, that in addition to These pavers that you're proposing behind the building, you're saying this landscaping down here? You're trying, are you, is that the landscaping you're talking?
We're not, I am not trying to say that those adhere to the provision. I'm not saying those go
No,
to
but
the
that's your
provision.
intent.
That it's separate, but with the idea that those are there with the purpose of screening. That coupled with our waiver request, we would hope that it makes the abutters happy. We would hope that it would make the board happy, and you would accept our waiver. And
So you say the buffer strip shall contain existing vegetation and/or plantings that are sufficiently dense to adequately screen adjacent. And you're saying that the
grass pavers, which are new,
grass pavers are
proposed.
screening?
I'm not saying those are screening. There's a forest behind the 20-foot buffer.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, those are meant to show that there's existing screening there, Madam Chair.
I would need to know what trees 6 inches or 6-inch caliper or more are in that forest that are going to provide
you're
that
asking,
screening.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not talking about the landscape buffer, you're referring to the 6-inch
Well,
caliper waiver? They're two separate waivers. And if I
No,
may,
I'm referring to the landscape
Okay.
waiver.
Sure.
So you're saying that there's sufficient buffering already there.
yes.
So I need to know what that is.
So the buffering you see there that's sufficient is the forest around, which is.
Correct. So those
squiggly line.
trees need to be called out by more than the squiggly line.
We've also asked for another waiver allowing us or not making us call out the 6-inch caliper trees, which was also requested in the 2022 site plan and was granted by this board. We're just asking for the same waiver.
Okay.
That was already granted.
All right. So what I'm saying is you can't say that there's existing vegetation
Madam Chair.
that will screen with, please don't interrupt me.
I apologize. Go ahead.
That will screen the adjacent residential properties without telling me what that vegetative screening is.
Madam Chair, to highlight every 6-inch caliper tree in that forest would be unduly burdensome. There are too many trees, and that is why there's a waiver requesting relief from that provision.
So it's not.
It was already granted in the
So-
2022 site plan.
Yeah, it's before all the trees got cut down. So I have a problem with that waiver.
Could I just add, George, that you might find it a decent effort to maybe show some photographs of what it looks like from there that would demonstrate something to help the board see more clearly what you're saying.
I would be happy to
Not that that would be
identify them by
sufficient,
photographs.
But I'm saying that might help your
Of
your
course, I would be
request.
happy to identify them by photographs, but I hope this board understands to identify every tree that has a 6-inch caliper is unduly burdensome. That is why the waiver is there.
So understood on the whole property, but it was done before because up by Route 9, you used existing trees instead of planting new trees, and they were used as landscaping, but they're called out, so we know what they are, and we know that they meet the landscape bylaw. Just having squiggles doesn't, and there's no way to enforce a squiggle.
In other words, a tree line represents different things. A tree line could be very dense, or it could also be very sparse.
What is this board proposing or how do we show that on this plan? If not for photos, we are happy to provide photos, but are you proposing that we dot or draw a circle for every 6-inch or less caliper tree there is in the
Greater.
forested area?
Bigger than 6. 6
Or
it's in the
larger than
code.
6? Sorry, whatever
If you
the,
look at the code, it does say that you're required to show that on the plan.
I understand.
And I know that's what you're asking for a waiver, but if you want to, prove to the planning board, show something.
But I mean, it's an 80 to 100-foot wide area of mature forest there.
So there must be
So-
something along here.
Explain to me how I know that there's sufficient buffering there.
Because we all know that there's an existing mature forest there. There's nothing on these plans, if the board approves them, that shows that work would be happening in that buffered forest.
But trees have already been cut down.
And it's subject to a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. One's been granted, but because the building's location has changed at the zoning board's request, we have to go back to the Conservation Commission for a new order of conditions. And it's progressive. It's the area of grass. It's the 16 spruces, not arborvitaes, because they're not native. The 80 to 100 feet width of mature forest that won't be touched. Additional visual barrier that we can work on with the neighbors that's off-site. It's the cumulative effect. And again, we think these plans are adequate to show that what's not happening in the mature forest in between. And the neighbors, we met with the neighbors, and they agree with what we've proposed.
So just some of the town planners suggested, I have seen, in my experience, these types of things supplemented with photos and a little bit more description, and this board has accepted that. So I'm hearing that the waiver is being entertained,
Yes.
just trying to get a little bit more substance.
We absolutely can provide photos.
I would agree. I think you could like document it in a different line, right? And then have just a supplement with photographs. And I think that I agree to try and do a forest of 6-inch caliber is very difficult to do. The one question that I have on this is, I understand a lot of this is with the discussion with the neighbors spoke, and that's not really in the site plan, but it could be a condition of the approval. So I think having like a separate letter that stated you're in agreement with the neighbors as a condition of approval that goes into our approval process would suffice instead of having it in the plan. Because then we know that there's something to kind of hold you guys accountable for the neighbors, but we can't do it in the site plan because it's not part of your property.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's how I would remedy it or
Thank you.
suggest.
Just like having a tree somewhere else.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi, David Ferris, 118 Turnpike. I was just going to suggest on this tree issue that we'd be happy as a company at our expense to come up with some metal tagging system that didn't injure the trees and number a certain distance of trees, a certain distance back that you guys think are reasonable from the plan, and or come up, or maybe there's some sort of standard type of item you identify and mark and label trees, and then have someone from either code enforcement or a representative from the board meet with myself and maybe one or two employees that had numbered the trees and then done a best estimate of where they are, so that the board feels comfortable that whatever trees were there when this was approved are still there and able to be checked years from now. So that was just one idea in terms of thought about the existing forest that's there. And then I think back to this lid issue, I met extensively with all of these members, and I dare call them loosely casual friends at this point, including my direct neighbor, who we left a lot of the hard trees between our properties at his request when Mike was working there. And so regrettably, I think we should have left more, and I apologize, and we're trying to work, as you know, with it. But be that as it may, I think when we sized this building, we really listened to the neighbors' feedback. And the feedback we got was really keep it kind of at the height levels that aren't like overly burdensome to a neighboring residential project. We could obviously cut this footprint in half and stay under lid very easily. We would have to go vertical to get the same square footage. It's like simple math. So we're trying to really listen to what they came back to us with and size a building that works with a permitting cost and a construction cost and whatnot. And you know, if we have to take a couple more meetings and push it into next year, that's fine. We want it done right for the community. It's a tax thing for us. You know, we save, a lot of taxes probably waiting until next year for the permits anyway, so.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
First, so what is it about the lid that is onerous?
I couldn't really speak to it. It'd be more the attorneys, I think.
Because this is a lot of effort to go through to avoid the lid requirement, and it might long range be just the easier way to comply with the lid rather than, because if you get into this thing where now you have a site plan that has these very specific areas of disturbance,
right,
it's not going to be a real stretch for a code enforcement officer to give you a hard time later.
Got it.
And I'm not suggesting that, and I wouldn't want that to happen,
Yeah, I'm
but
totally blunt.
let's be realistic about this. I mean, you guys are setting yourself up for more problems later, is my point.
I wouldn't disagree necessarily. I just would say this is a pretty small project in terms of, it's a steel building, it's probably $1 million. We have other uses for the site that would make us a lot more money, but this was something where we could get some utility and tax base to the town. We win getting something done that's, reasonable in the location and zoning and sort of works with the neighbors. I mean, if we're going to spend that kind of time, we'd probably go, we're developers, so we're looking for highest and best use with, Route 9 assets that are on a busy road. This isn't the highest and best use. This is the best use that fits an area of neighbors that are abutting and want a height level restriction effectively with this building. And so it's not super expensive construction. It's something that if we can work with the town and get it done efficiently, great. If we can't, we'll redesign it. We'll come up with another use for the property. I think what I have heard from the direct abutters who are most burdened by it is, it's an uptick for the community. I think it creates at least maybe $5 million of tax base to the, community in that location, which at our tax rates probably 75, 100 grand of additional tax base, and it doesn't put a lot of burden. I think at the end of the day, if our other project behind it gets approved, you got a very nice uptick in the entrance off of Route 9 because we're preservationists, like in the sense of we want to protect ourselves and our investments. So we're obviously going to have a very nice entrance off of Route 9 if it's going to be a housing project in the back. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there because there has been a year-plus meetings with the neighbors, and we've kind of gotten to a point where I think they support it generically. And I don't want to put, words in their mouth, but I talk to them regularly, and I think they think it's an uptick to what we're doing. And I think they would all agree on this, agenda item later tonight on the noise thing. We got really aggressive. It's probably cost the town, I don't know, 30 grand of tax revenue because when I show Paul Savelli the rent receipts and those two tenants aren't in the mix, the NOI or net operating income from that parking lot will come down enough that the town won't see that tax revenue. But I think it was good for the neighbors and it sort of put the issue to bed. So I don't know if we have to cover that later, but that's kind of my thinking on it.
Yes, sir.
John Palmer again, 131 Parkerville. I neglected to make that point, which I am very appreciative of. After raising the issue at the last meeting, the noise disturbances have ceased. So, whatever actions were taken, they were the right actions because no more noise disturbances.
I have to mention, I drove to the site myself after the last meeting, and I really appreciated the fact that it was dark and quiet. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I just want the entire board to know when that stuff comes up, they can text me directly and we get it even faster as well.
I'll quote him. He said we can text him directly with any questions or concerns.
Anything else? Anyone else?
I'd like to make a motion that the planning board extend the decision date deadline for 250 Turnpike Road, major site plan approval, contractor's yard building, to November 8th, 2024. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was in the
So
draft.
this,
We already did that one, but we need to continue the meeting.
okay, scratch that. Motion is to extend the public hearing for 250 Turnpike Road Contractor's Yard Building, major site plan approval to November 4th, 2024, 7 p.m.
Second, and just to
At
remind.
the public safety
Yeah.
At
building.
the Public Safety Building.
Second, as amended.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes?
Brascio, yes.
If you or James have any questions as to what we discussed tonight, feel free to call me.
Will do.
I'll try and clarify anything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is a discussion item, Stonebrook Village subdivision as-built review and bond release, and I will be recusing myself.
I will as well.
Finally, the moment I've been waiting for, obviously since August. No, excuse me. When did this first come up, Corina, in the pipeline? It's been in the department for quite a while. It's so rare I get the pleasure of chairing this board because we have such a wonderful chairperson. Corina, would you please bring us up to speed on Stonebrook Village subdivision?
Yes, I just want to point out that I don't see anyone from Stonebrook Village in the attendees room. If you are there, please raise your hand. And I don't see anybody here in person. And I believe it was going to be Justin DePietri, representing Capital Group Properties. We have Shannon Boyce raising her hand. Colleen, can you elevate Shannon? I believe she is one of Capital Group's managers.
Hello?
Hi, Shannon?
Hi, would you mind giving me a moment? I'm just going to text Justin because I believe, yes, he was going to be at this meeting.
Okay.
And I don't really have the information to answer any questions that you might have, so I want to make sure that he logs in.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I'll just be 1 moment.
So would you like me to give a little history while we're waiting?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So this project started a long time ago, before I even came to Southborough. But in October of 2018, we asked Fuss & O'Neill to provide an initial bond estimate review for the project, which was determined to be $168,000 at the time. A performance bond was provided by Capital Group Properties for the subdivision. So when a subdivision is built and they want to get the lots released and the covenant, move beyond the covenant, what they do is they have us determine what work is remaining to be done, and that gets bonded. So that was the original $168,000. So then in March of 2020, the applicant came in and asked for a reduction in that $168,000, and the planning board granted a reduction down to $50,000 for a performance bond, which reflected $38,000 worth of remaining work, and then an additional $12,000 that the planning board estimated for the 40 arborvitae trees shown on the approved plans that were going to be replaced, I believe, with white pines. So that was approved, and the bond was reduced down to $50,000 in 2020. Then, in April of 2023, actually prior to that, I started working with Capital Group Properties, who wanted to submit as-built and get a bond release. So over a period of many months, there was back and forth about meeting the requirements of the subdivision regulations for as-built, information that has to be on the plans, a certifying letter from an engineer, hard copies, etc. And as we came closer to that actually being complete, Capital Group Properties provided a letter in April 2023 to please accept this letter as a formal request for final release of the bond securities for the project, Stonebrook Village. Along with the letter, please find 3 copies of the as-built plans accompanied with a letter of certification from the engineer. So upon that, in July of 2023, Fuss and O'Neill reviewed the as-bills that were submitted and the bond release review as well, and had a punch list of items to be addressed, and also opined that the bond now could be reduced to $3,600. So in finding that, I worked with Capital Group Properties, who said they wanted to remedy the comments that Fuss and O'Neill had left over and work on the remaining items of the as-built. So as they did that, eventually, between July 2023 and now February 2024, another submission was provided for the as-built plans to be reviewed and a bond review in which they addressed almost everything except for 3 remaining things having to do with the open space markers and boundary and such. And the bond review was recommended to go down to $1,900 in order to cover a revised final as-built. So instead of coming forward then, they agreed to finish out the work that was still remaining that Fuss and O'Neill had left in their comment letter. And we have a final letter on October 3rd, 2024, from Fuss and O'Neill describing that all the as-built plans had met all the required revisions and met everything. So the plan that was provided of the subdivision as-built, and then also there was an open space plan of land to identify exactly the boundaries of the restricted open space as part of the subdivision that's to be recorded as well. So that was all vetted. They installed the markers in the field. They updated the plans to reflect that, and Fuss and O'Neill's final review indicated that that had all been done. And because I worked closely with them over the last 2 years on getting everything finalized, there were other things like a sidewalk was supposed to be paid for in lieu for somewhere else for $12,000. So that money was provided to Karen Galligan at the time to use for a sidewalk project. There was a tree that was supposed to be planted off-site that was planted at Trotter School several years ago. So as far as the as-built and the performance bond that's left for $50,000, Fuss and O'Neill opined, and I looked at everything as well, that that should be good to go and ready to release. Then there was also one of the conditions of the subdivision approval, the definitive, and the site plan for the 55 and over. This decision had like 64 conditions in it at the time, and condition number 59 required a $3,500 bond to make sure that the open space was created and mitigated and no encroachments. And if you recall, there were some encroachments discovered, which they mitigated with a 2-to-1 trade. And that was all reflected in the current as-built and the open space plan. So I also provided the information for that $3,500 bond to be released with interest that accrued. That's in an actual cash bond escrow account with the treasurer through a bank. So I know, Jesse, you had asked me previously about how come it took so long? And I just wanted to make sure the board was clear on where it started and how we got here.
Thank you, Karina. I'll open up to the board. Ms. Houlihan?
Karina, I just want to say thank you again for helping proponents get to where they need to be with an as-built. So glad that Fuss and O'Neill was able to review it and that you were able to spend so much time with them. Thank you for all of your work, and I have no questions.
Ms. Braccio?
They're recused. Demuria.
Mr. Muria, sorry. I'm new at this.
Thank you, Karina. That was really, really helpful. I know that the board has seen this over the years, and it's just really hard to put the whole thing together, so it's really helpful. I have no questions. Thanks.
Thank you. So what's in front of us for this evening, we should see if the proponent has any questions or wants to speak, I think. Ms. Boyce, do you want
Hi.
anything to add to this conversation?
I'm back on, so I was unable to get a hold of Justin. If you did need to hear from him and need to continue, then we understand, but if you feel you're able to make a decision tonight, we'd actually appreciate that as well.
Yep,
And
thank
thank
you.
you, Karina, for giving the background to everyone for us.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what's in front of the board is the $50,000 performance bond release, correct?
Correct?
And that is inclusive of the $38,000 for the Fuss and O'Neill review and the $12,000 for landscaping. That's the
Yes.
total is $50,000
That was,
plus
yeah,
interest.
that was an yep.
And then you have a separate cash bond of $3,500 plus interest for the open space requirements.
Condition number 59 of the
Okay.
decision. And I also like to add that I did speak to Conservation about this, and they are all set as well.
So can we do these in one motion?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I would entertain that at this time if you're prepared.
Yes, so I make a motion to, for the board to make a final release of the 3 bonds.
2 bonds.
Two bonds, the 50,000
And the third.
performance bond and the 3,500 open space bond,
Okay, yep. Plus interest.
plus interest, which is, no, I don't need to read it, right?
No, it's very,
Okay.
it's like $100 or something.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes?
Demiria, yes.
And also, you might want to accept the as-built. I don't know if it's,
Thank you.
have you
That's
had
right.
that
Thank you.
before? Yeah.
I make a motion to accept the as-built as submitted. I don't see the date. September 10th, 2024 is the date of the as-built, submitted on October 3rd, 2024, for Stonebrook Village
And the open space
and the
plan of land.
and the open space plan of land.
And I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes?
Demiria, yes.
Now I cede the chair back to Mimi Luttrell.
Congratulations, Shannon. You're all set.
Thank you.
And that's great. And Shannon, I hope you can convey that. I'll draft a notice of vote, which will go to the treasurer and to the town clerk, which will describe the motions. And they'll take it from there, and that $3,500 bond is what, plus interest is what you should be getting a check back in the near future. The performance bond, that is between Capital Group Properties and their bonding company.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and if you have any questions, you can just call me during the week.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye now.
The next item on the agenda is a discussion item, 26 Meadow Lane Flexible Subdivision.
I just want, so that it's clear.
Karina.
All right, hold on. So the reason that Mr. Bemis and Mr. Pucci are here this evening is because they approached the planning department with a proposed project for a flexible development at 24 to 28 Meadow Lane, which will be ultimately the number, but it's actually 26 Meadow Lane right now, to create 5 units in a flexible development under a major residential development special permit. And I'll let you go over the details of the project. But in general, what that requires is a special permit, major residential development, flexible development, which shows a conventional layout that can prove the number of dwelling units that can be used to be built in a flexible development. So this project through planning would require a major site plan, because it's not a subdivision, which we would typically have a definitive subdivision. In this case, it's going to be a site plan for the 5 units on one lot. Then it would require the special permit for the MRD flexible, and then it would require a lid special permit. And town code requires that for a flexible development under MRD, that the applicant come before the planning board to explain the project for open communication and feedback, so that, to help expedite the project moving forward. All right, and Mr. Bemis is the engineer representing the project.
Good evening.
Welcome, Mr. Bemis.
Thank you. Peter Bemis, Engineering Design Consultants. I'm here on behalf of William Poutre. And I would prefer to start with the subdivision plan, because the conventional is kind of where I think it makes sense to just start the discussion. So if Colleen doesn't mind putting that up on the board.
Did you provide that?
I did, yeah.
It was with the 2 sheets?
Yeah.
There it is, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So the project for Locust, we extend out to the east to Valley Road, to the south to Meadow Lane. This then would abut the DCR property to the west. And to the north, we've got a couple of abutters. We've got DCR, trying to remember the Manjersey LLC. Then we've got 39 Pine Falmouth LLC and Carriage Hill Condominium. The properties as you come in off of Valley, there are some leaching areas, one for the Carriage Hill Condominium and another for the 39 Pine Falmouth LLC. The 6 lots would be a development road off of Meadow Lane. There are 4 that would be about a half an acre with about a half an acre of roadway, and then 2 very large lots that'd be 2.5 acres. Clearly, we could carve some open space out of this as part of those other lots, but you get basically 6 lots in a cookie-cutter subdivision that doesn't bring a lot of added value. So the proposal was then to come forward with a flexible development that I think has a lot more to offer overall. And the flexible plan would have 3 single-family units. Colleen, if you don't mind advancing to the other plan. Thank you. So there'd be 3 single-family units and then 1 duplex unit. The duplex unit is the one on the lower left. And open space parcels that add up to about 4.2 acres. The development area is 3.5 acres. So we've got about 55% open space value development versus the 25% required. So we're well in excess of what the minimum is. The one item that I would bring to your attention with this property was this is the former airstrip for Peter Callander. So we've got about an acre of runway that still exists out here. We're going to remove most of that. There were some prior agreements with the property at 30 Meadow Lane, where they have access through the rear portion along a portion of this airstrip from Valley Road to their rear parking lot. Basically, it's how Peter got in and out of the back garage when he lived here. So our proposal is to cut that pavement back so we can still provide a 12-foot minimum wide driveway. And then the other thing that we didn't put in the plan, but I do have to bring to your attention tonight, because it will be in the final plan, is that because there are these leaching areas for the 2 residential communities to our south, that we're going to provide an easement for them to be able to park on that open space, because this open space, could be made as a public open space, or it could be just held within the development. You folks could give us your input on that. But there needs to be some recognition that when they have to do some service work out there, they would need a place to park. So we'd want to do that. And I do anticipate still taking the pavement away, but there'd just be a grass area for someone to be able to pull off into properly. So
The demographics are kind of what I described to you about the acreage, 7.8 acres of a total property being developed here. Conventionally, there'd be 6 units. Our preference is to pursue the 4 building units with 5 residential properties within that as a flexible development and set aside 4.2 acres of land. Be happy to answer any questions, and we look forward to working with the board on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stein?
Hey, Mr. Bemis, how you doing?
Good.
Okay. So the first thing that jumps out at me is park on the open space. I mean, open space by definition is to remain undisturbed. So
It's already got
that's
an airstrip.
completely incongruent with the code right there.
I'm just telling you, there's an airstrip there, and there's a private driveway that has.
So, yeah, can we, I wish we had like the old fashioned, like cutout so that you could point to it, because I hate turning around like
Want a
this.
pointer?
Sorry. Oh, you want to do it that way?
Yeah, maybe you can, yeah, maybe next, when you do the project, you might want to bring some.
Yeah, let's go to,
And
bring
see
back
if we
the
get
old
a screen
days.
on that side.
Yeah, so the driveway is here, the runway. And so you can see that we're maintaining that driveway access to 230.
Okay, this is,
But
this
we,
is
and
the
we could, and we
runway.
could do that, we could just put, like, define this limit, and then I was gonna put a small box out here, so that when they come to service this area and this area, because there's leaching areas on these abutting properties, that they would have a place to be able to park, and not be in the driveway and preventing number 30 from gaining access to their.
This is kind of remarkable, isn't it, that the existing runway is right next to, almost on top of wetland and a drainage easement?
I'm sure the runway.
So how are you guys going to do the work without disturbing those areas?
Well, we have a filing with conservation. We'll have to get a notice of intent to do the work. But eliminating asphalt adjacent to wetlands is not a bad thing. So at the end of the day, we're going to try to make the situation better. There's really no buffer right now. We're going to try to provide a buffer to that wetland. But,
So where would people be parking exactly?
we're going to just box out an area right here.
So, and it's for,
And there's a
Such a
septic
butter?
system on this. Yep, this property right here has a leaching area on it, and those are for the residential homes on this side of Meadow Lane, the single-family homes. And then the carriage house condominiums, their leaching areas here.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Bear with me. I'm
Sure.
trying to understand why people that live over here would park up there.
No, sir, they're not going to.
Okay.
This is a community soil absorption system.
Okay.
And so there has to be inspections periodically for that. So their service provider needs a place to be able to park, to come here, and the same thing with Carriage Hill. And when if we left the 30 feet of pavement here, which is an option, if you were to insist, we could leave it. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd like to remove the asphalt, but if we left it, then the gentleman at 30 and his family would continue to be able to drive past without any problems. But by eliminating the asphalt down to 12 feet, which is kind of a minimum driveway width, there's no spot for someone to be able to pull off.
Okay. Fortunately, we have 2 board members who spent a lot of time on the Open Space Commission, so I'm sure I'm going to leave it.
That's what we're here to
Yeah.
talk about, is
Deal with.
the dialogue. If need be, we could carve out where the asphalt is and not include it. We're well over your minimum. So as far as I'm concerned, I am 100% over what I have to do. So we could peel back. I am just trying my best to put as, green a project forward as we can.
Yeah, no, appreciate that.
Colleen, could you zoom out a little bit so we could see the full project? Or move the side screen, that's better.
Yeah. So if I come back here to Valley, again, there needs to be this access. And again, we made it so that it's only 12 feet wide versus 30.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So just going to the conventional for a second, what was your intent on Lot 6? I don't see a building. Was Lot 6 going to be just left undisturbed as on that in the conventional plan?
Colleen, can you switch to the
You
second
could view it
sheet?
that way. I mean, we weren't trying to get all the, look at this from a fully permitted perspective, but there is an area for leaching right here. This is already a leaching area, so there's enough room to get a compliant leaching area on 6. I have the ability to access that through this existing paved surface that's here, and I could put the house somewhere here by coming all the way around and doing that. We don't want to build it, but yes, this is a building lot.
So you're going to do that
2.5
again,
acres,
please?
sure. Right now, there's a paved surface that comes all the way down here to this home.
This is the landing strip.
Yes, sir. And then if we were to build Lot 6 the way we're showing it, we can put the leaching area here, it's viable, it's gonna meet all requirements, and then we would have access to be able to put a house here. It would be ugly. I am not suggesting this would be something that I'd wanna rush out and do, but it's still a building lot. It meets zoning requirements, it would meet environmental requirements.
The
but it would be
setback from the
ugly.
what, I mean.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would have to get, I'm sure at the end of the day, none of us would be happy about it, but you could do it.
Peter, can I just clarify, because Jesse's talking about this right now, but the planning board, I think I forwarded you an email from Conservation regarding comments about the potential that the wetland in that area is actually further north as well. And that, I think she was going to send it to Lucas Environmental to confirm that. So the wetland on that plan, and there was a plan that Melissa had included, may in fact expand the wetlands based on a 2022 plan. So I just want you to be aware of that.
Okay. So I'm in agreement. Personally, I would be supportive of the flexible option. On the duplex, what's your thought on making one of those like an affordable, like deed restricted unit for affordability?
We wouldn't do that.
That's not part of the deal? What will be built then?
What's that?
What are they going to be?
It's,
Oh, yeah.
hi, I'm Bill Poutre, and I'm the applicant, the applicant here. We have a plan for it, and we've shown it to a lot of the neighbors. It actually looks very much like a single-family house. As a matter of fact, when I first showed it to a few neighbors, they said, oh, that's a nice single-family house. I said, I'm glad you said that. And it's a duplex. But it fits well within the neighborhood and what was built. They'll be the same quality as the 3 other homes that were outside of this development that were A&R lots that are existing right now. And if you went up there and looked at them, they're actually very beautiful homes. And the hope was to, while we can prove out 6 lots, we really don't have the need to do that because we're only asking for 5 as opposed to 6.
Yep, certainly appreciate that. It's just that, we like to do what we can to diversify the housing stock in town when possible. So just trying to get at how this helps accomplish that.
I do believe it diversifies the stock. The reality of the situation is that those units will be less expensive, significantly less expensive than what we would be building for the other homes.
Bill, can I just ask, what's the square footage on the multifamily?
They're about 2,500 square feet each. So they're big duplexes, but the fact of the matter is, it's a lot less expensive to build 2 duplexes on one lot than it would be a single family. And so the reality is they will be significantly cheaper than the other units. The other 3 units,
Would you like
the
to
3 single
care to-
families will be over $2 million each.
And what do you think each unit will be?
I'm going to guess, but 1.4.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Willian.
Hi, Mr. Bemis, hi, Mr. Putri. Thank you. I think this is really interesting and novel. And I knew there was a landing strip, I just didn't know where exactly it was in town, so now I see it. Mr. Bemis, just a quick question. On the end of the strip, That's just the hard end. There's no access that you would provide into that lot 4.
Correct. And the way the open space is structured, they're two separate pieces, one east, one west.
And is there a way to use that end area for parking versus carving something out in the middle? Or is, you know what I mean, just extend the driveway a little bit and just make that like a long, kind of like a cul-de-sac area?
Yeah, that's
Just
a
a
possibility.
concept.
It's just that where they need to get to is really more at the midpoint.
Oh, because of the
lines
leaching
are.
areas in there.
So
Oh,
really-
I see.
just- And honestly, I didn't really want to see them having more access, any more than they needed to. Frankly, I don't mind even putting it at the end of Valley Road and telling them to walk. But at some point, we need to recognize that this is
They have to be
something that's been
serviced.
happening for years, regardless of whether there was proper documentation of it or not.
Sure.
We're coming to you now to say, we're going to do something with this property, we're going to divide it, and we need to set the balance of this going forward properly. So it may very well be that when we talk about this further outside of this meeting tonight, that we move it to a different spot. But I don't want to move it all the way to the west, that's for sure.
Okay.
I would tell you that's a hard stop. I don't want it back at number 30 is what I guess I'm saying, because he's in a butter to our project too.
Yep.
Nor would we want it closer to the other homes that are being built. They don't want to have construction vehicles or people
Sure.
just parking right behind their homes either.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally I'm pleased, and as as you think about the diversification of housing, I know you're doing 3 single family and 2 a duplex. Would you ever change that mix, or kind of how did you end up coming with the 3 single family versus like 2 duplex and 2 single family?
We could have done that. We could have had up to 6 units, and as a good faith effort, we wanted to show that, look, we have the ability to do 6. We're only doing 5. And we think the layout of how we did it is much more appropriate, and it sits better. Rather than trying to get all the juice out of the orange, we wanted to make it a nice neighborhood that fit with what belongs there. And we also looked at, there's the senior housing right up the street of Carriage Hill.
Yep.
And quite a few of the seniors like walking up and down that
Landing strip.
runway for exercise. And so we're giving them our thought was, let's continue to give them the ability to do that. Let's leave that as open space, allow people to utilize that space. And let's just go to 5 units. Also, the runway, a couple of years back, just as I was purchasing it, there was a request that was put forward to take out some of the pavement there to increase the drainage, because there was a drainage problem. What happens is the runway basically traps water on one side and traps water on the other side, and that's what creates a lot of these wet areas. So by eliminating that, we feel it'll be better. The area that we had cut back a couple of years ago has already improved that situation, and that went through conservation and so forth.
So, one, thank you for coming. I think it's a really novel idea. I support I support it. I think it's a great use of the land and bringing in some diversity of housing. And then my last question to you is just, have you talked to the neighbors about it?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Murray?
Hi there. Yep, thank you for coming. I was hoping to get a flexible development plan at some point, so I also support your project. I was just wondering maybe if you can just expand on what some of the neighbors have said to you. What kind of conversations have you had with them?
There was concern with a lot of the neighbors, oh, this is a big parcel, what could be put there?
Yeah.
Could there be an apartment complex put there? What is it that could be put there? There were a lot of neighbors that were concerned, that we kept with the character of what was there. Again, if you look at the houses that were built, they're beautiful homes. And, they want to know what these are going to look like. They're modern farmhouse homes, all of them. They're very attractive. There are no trees on the property. There are no stone walls on the property. It allows that neighborhood to be finished. It's looked unfinished for years. This will allow it to be finished. People asked, will you still leave some of the runway for walking? And that's one of the reasons why we included that. So we tried to incorporate some of the thoughts. I had the 2 A&R lots up front, and the one in the corner I'm building for myself. So, we want it to be an attractive area that keeps that open feel to it, which I believe it does.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Brasher.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. I too think this is a great concept. I really, really like the duplex. I'm not sure what you're calling it.
It's what it is.
Yeah. So I think it's great, and I think in a nice neighborhood with nice houses, it's great to be able to have that diversity as well, and done in a very tasteful way. It's inclusive, which I really appreciate. Just a couple quick questions. And again, I know open space, once it gets to a point, open space will have a comment, but Mimi, I'm just going to ask you, I can't remember a time ever where there was already restriction on a parcel if we included it in open space as far as the calculations. I'm just curious about that. I don't remember if we ever, I don't think we ever did.
Yeah, I think the access easement is difficult. The restriction for no building, I don't think that would conflict
Okay, so like for
particularly.
parcel A, the half that already has a restriction, I'm looking at the restriction on Mass Land Records now.
Yeah.
So that could be included in the open space parcel with, and, included in the calculations for open space, even though it's already protected?
Yeah, I think so, because it
Okay.
doesn't conflict.
I
I mean, there are other problems with that area, but.
Right, but I just, as I was looking at it, I don't remember that ever coming up in the time I was on open space, so that's a good clarification, so.
We actually presented, and probably the only other recent request with this bylaw. It was done by St. Anne's Church. So it was land I own it next to St. Anne's Church. And we, once again, worked with the neighbors, and all the land in the back was left as open space.
Yep.
And you can see what was put there. And that housing fit the use for where it was located. And
Yep.
So this is not too dissimilar to what we built. So we listened to the feedback when we brought this project the first time for that property, and hopefully incorporated the concerns of, while it's a new board, a Southborough Planning Board, into that, and incorporated that into this plan also.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I think the location and, again, I'd be interested to hear from the open space on their take as far as the calculations, but I think this is a really unique parcel with abutting the DCR land and, the walkability of it. I think it makes it really unique, and it makes it really, really attractive to people as well. So I really look forward to this continuing as a flexible and, going down the path with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say, before you start, maybe, is the board aware that you are intending to possibly convey the eastern, is that the eastern side?
Yes.
The larger airport parcel to the town?
Yes, so that would be the parcel that, as you see, there's two open space parcels. One's on the east side, one's on the west side. The parcel on the east side, my opinion is that we would convey that to the town.
The entirety of parcel C?
That's right.
Yes. We would convey that to the town as open space, and the town could take that over. It would protect any wetlands that are over there, and the town could do with it as it likes. I thought that at least leaving that area for walkability for, you went over there any given day, you'll see people walking up in that area. The parcel to the west would stay with the homeowners association.
And just so the planning board is clear, because I got to make sure everybody understands. So there may be concerns with the town accepting a property that has drainage issues that impact abutters already. There's a question on, you guys, through conservation, I think Lucas Environmental is going to check the limits of the wetlands that are shown already there. And then there are, in addition to the septic easements, right? There's a septic easement.
There's underground, almost like utility easements.
There's
right?
infrastructure on that project, on that parcel as well. So that complicates a conveyance in a sense. I just want to make sure
It
everybody's
doesn't have to
clear.
do, we just, it was a possibility, and then that part, we just see the east side being something that's publicly accessible.
Yeah, there's
whereas
pros and
the
cons, but I just
west
want,
side would be privately
Yeah.
accessible.
just want to make sure the planning, because I sent 2 emails today that was kind of late in the day. So there was one that Conservation had sent to Peter. I don't know if you were copied about some concerns they had, and then Conservation had some questions as well outlining, knowing you were coming here. So I just want to make sure you were aware of those comments. All right, sorry, Mimi, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want you to know that that was part of the plan.
Okay. So, so there's a shared septic on this?
Yes, the project for these 5 dwelling units would be a private system that they would have in common.
Okay.
We have a previous approval from the Board of Health on that just needs to be revised for moving tanks. The leaching field hasn't moved, but that was approved by the Board of Health.
Okay. So then the minimum open space would be 55% with the
Right.
shared septic?
That's underneath, yes, a portion of that, yes. So again, the area calculation was based on that, and I don't believe the regulation prohibits us from counting that space, because it is going to remain open, but there is going to be a leaching area on that component of it.
So, yeah, so I would have an issue with that there's a septic system in the open space.
Okay.
And also,
I'll take that area out then, I mean, as a calculation, so you'll still see that we're still well above the 25%.
so the minimum is 55%, 20% natural and 35% common for shared.
I believe it's it's 35%, and then it can increase up to 55% depending on the percentage of
So that's the multifamily, correct. But if you're not having an individual septic system on each lot.
We'd be glad to look at the
I'll go
bylaw,
back
and
through
we will
and-
comply with the
right.
bylaw.
No matter what, we will. And the other thing I was also going to say, on the west side, when Zach prepared the plan, he showed that as a wetland. We did already meet with conservation, and that was man-made. So basically, when Mr. Calander built his airstrip here, there was no stormwater provision at all out here. The contractor built that basin. We've shown the progression of aerial photography that's available to prove that was basically man-made. They did so without going through the permitting process, however. So what we're looking at it and saying, well, there's a wetland there. I mean, there's vegetation there. They're going to take advantage. They're opportunistic plants. So it's an isolated area that is wet at that position on the property. But even more reason to try to set aside as open space.
And so you have the common driveway as open space?
No, that wasn't in the calculation. That's a common, so what we're doing is we're saying that's common area. That's common space, not open space, common space that's highlighted in green.
HOA area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's going to be community space. So the way we're envisioning this is going to look a lot like a residential, regular tract of land, if you will. You'll have your lot. So you'll have exclusive use areas within where your building would be. But then there's the community space.
Okay, all right. So that common driveway requires a special permit?
So I think you approve it as part of the special permit. The overall project is a special permit. If you feel like there's only 2 buildings coming off of that, so it is a separate special permit application. I'll add another one in there if you want. When I talked to Karina about this, we discussed the fact that would be the 3 174, 13.2, 13.3, and 10 for a site plan. I don't think we have to do a separate one for a common driveway. You're approving the project as a site plan. But if you feel like we have to add that, we'll add it.
I think common driveway is more than 2 houses.
Yeah.
If more than 2 houses serve,
There's only 2.
And there's
served.
only one lot that we're dealing with. It's a condo project.
hold
so
on,
it's
I'll
not-
tell you real quickly.
It's not a common driveway. It's a,
So it's 174 dash,
Yeah. I just don't think we really need to do it, but
it's right before site plan. Common driveways, 174-91, unless we're talking about something different. So
No.
174-91 says, common driveways serving more than 2
Oh, okay.
or more detached single-family dwellings shall not be allowed in any district unless it comes before the planning board for a permit.
and I want you to understand, like, right now, you've got this 1 acre of runway here that has no stormwater protection. Every unit is going to have infiltrative drainage associated with it. The driveways, everything will have infiltrative drainage. We're going to infiltrate 100% of this roadway and driveway and parking lot, the driveways and their access roads. We're also proposing to improve Meadow Lane's drainage because it's woefully inadequate. So we were going to upgrade that as well. And then all of the system would then tie into the Meadow Lane system. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we did upgrade the back end of this too. And we gave the town an easement so that they could discharge their water properly through private property that didn't exist before. So there's a number of steps that we've taken to try to clean up, as Bill said, try to put a permanent piece that fits this into this puzzle, because all these homes all got built. This is the last big piece of land out here. And we're trying to do it in what I would call a respectful manner. That view shed that you were talking about that's north of that property, we did that for an abutter. That's why we put that restriction on there already.
we went to the abutters and said, what are the things that concern you? And that abutter said, well, I don't want any building going on behind my house. So I said, okay, I'll give you I'll put a deed restriction on our property that shows that we won't build anything behind your house. He's overjoyed and very, very happy and thankful that we did that. The other thing is that is interesting is the net, since we're taking all this runway out, the net non-permeable surface area is a decrease. How often do you have projects that come to you that say we're going to decrease non-permeable surface area?
And that's with the development, and what we could have just taken the approach and said, okay, because DEP provides for this, you're doing a redevelopment project, I'm taking out this asphalt, I could just put everything in and not mitigate. But we were like, no, we're
Is
not
there a
going to do
pump
that.
house structure on parcel C?
We're going to be very proactive in
Is
how
there a
we do
pump
this.
house structure on parcel C? Is there a
Oh.
septic pump house station or
Oh,
something?
sure, that's up in the front, I can show that.
Is
if you-
that on the plan?
Yeah,
Colleen, can you put the
Colleen.
plan back up, please?
But it's just important to try to put a good, positive, green project forward. That's really where we're going with
And
this.
that's really what we did. Like I said, we went to all the neighbors. That was his concern. I don't want anything built behind my house. Fine, I'll give you a deed restriction that says we won't build anything behind your house.
And no noxious activity either.
What's that?
No noxious activity.
There will be no noxious activity.
It says-
Keep in mind, my house is going to be right next to it.
Oh.
I don't want noxious activity behind my house either.
So that little triangle, wasn't that lot already created?
So we will be putting forward
Isn't-
in our plan, so the front area
No?
has been.
There was a parcel here that's part of what is Bill's lot, but that piece is still part of this property, the Valley Road property that Bill acquired from the Calander Trust.
So where is that pump house? I know it's not on the screen, but can you
Yeah,
just describe
it's
it?
in the, so it's to the left of the common driveway.
That other gray area that you see there?
It's highlighted on this plan. Colleen's not going to put it on for us here. So it's right there, to the left of the common driveway is the,
Oh, I thought there was one on parcel C.
no.
Parcel C, yes, there is one down there.
There's one on parcel C.
There's also one
Did they
that
put
is
something
there.
on it?
That is the pump house for Carriage Hill.
And where is that?
Oh,
If you should just,
Well, that's this easement.
It's within the easement that is shown there, in the dotted easement that's shown
like,
on the
if,
bottom. No, on the
Here?
southerly side.
Yep,
Over
you just
here?
go from east to west, and halfway down,
Here we
you'll
go.
see.
Here's the plan.
Okay, I can do it for you now.
You'd have to get rid of the,
Can you
Colleen,
zoom
can you go out, please? Oh. So here, I'll just, Karina, you have the exhibit.
there we go,
It's right here.
right there.
So those dashed
This is the
lines are the
easement, this is the
easement
easement coming from
yes.
Carriage Hill.
for the septic,
Yes.
Correct,
and the pump house is in there.
correct.
And keep in mind, the easement, you see one that's going through this area, it's a 4-inch pipe. I don't know why these easements were made so large and crazy, but it's a 4-inch pipe. It's not, that is underground. The equivalent that you would see for any utility easement, whether it be for electric or whether it be for gas, or it's just a utility easement.
So this open space, I mean, you can look at it from a couple of perspectives, but I would say it's really just preservation of land to not be developed. If this.
Upland.
If you decided you wanted to try to take it as more of an active use, we have the ability to do that on the east side. On the west side, we're just saying we'd like it to be passive, that it's just view shed for all the abutting properties that are here in the development that we have created.
And that was
Okay.
appreciated by all the homeowners, if you look, that are all the way out to Valley Road. It's very much tree. There are very tall pines there and so forth, and they, you know, when talking to them, we would like that not to be cut down. We like having that privacy. Fine, we'll leave it an open space and it'll stay just like that. It protects the wetlands, it protects their privacy. So
So just in compliance with the bylaw, so it's 20% in its natural state, 35% common, and that can't have wetlands in it either, to figure out the, calculate the open
We'll go back
space
through
minimum.
that again. I know where you're coming from on this now. When we did this, we did it as a global calculation. That's why we have these meetings ahead of time.
No, they're
for a
helpful.
reason. Right.
We have someone with their hand raised.
Yes. Colleen, there's a hand. Are you able to do it, Marnie? Okay, thanks.
Hello?
Hi, David, if you could just introduce yourself.
Hi, yeah, this is David Williams at 25 Meadow Lane. We live directly across the street from where this development is being proposed. I do have questions about where you can build a duplex, and then secondly, if you can put in a duplex, why you would put it right on the street instead of putting it further back. Because I would just say that as far as keeping in character with a neighborhood, a duplex is not keeping in character with a neighborhood. So I don't, what exactly is the process for being able to put in a duplex in a neighborhood of single-family homes?
So under the flexible subdivision, you can have a duplex, or you can have duplex if that's what the
Okay.
rule is.
So maybe my
So those
question
are allowed.
is just why, yeah, so I guess my question to the applicant would be more why you would put it on the street instead of further back.
we thought that that's where it best fit on the property is the easy answer to that. You know, where the other easements existed, we felt that that's the spot that it best fit to on the parcel and accommodate any of the other utility easements that currently exist.
So and does it look like a single-family home?
Yeah, I have a picture of it if you'd like to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were going to submit that as part of the whole package, but this presentation didn't make sense, so I didn't include it.
They're getting a picture, David.
Okay.
So that's the front. And so if you would, so this is the front elevation. And this is the side elevation from the driveway side. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Let me see if I've got a better picture. But if people wanted to look at the front of that, you're welcome to take this. It does not look like a duplex. It looks like a single-family home. There you go.
Can you see that, David?
Yeah,
And David's seen this. I had shown him this.
yeah. Sorry, yeah, I agree. That doesn't look bad. But I also want to say, the impressions that there's been a lot of discussion with the neighbors, and I don't really think that's accurate. We've certainly talked to Mr. Poutre a number of times over the years, but I mean, it was only a few days ago that we actually saw the plans. We haven't discussed it as, I mean, we have a homeowners association because we have the shared septic. So, that actually hasn't been seen until very recently. Maybe there are Board of Health concerns, but I think we would have, we would want some concern. We do have some concerns about, the development and any potential impact on the shared septic and leach field that we have.
I'd be glad to have any discussion, and that 39 Pine Falmouth LLC, that's me. I own that piece also, and I've offered to give it to them, and they could take it, but they've chosen not to do that.
Well, that's not exactly the way it went, but.
So is that the shared septic at that 39 Pine?
Yeah, that's correct. We have a shared septic, and there's also a reserve, and I want to make sure that the reserve for that leach field, which is just to the west of where our existing leach field is, we just want to make sure that's not somehow, affected. I mean, he's right. We have talked about the fact that it's owned by Mr. Poutre, and we have an easement to it, so we still have access to do what we need to in terms of the leach field goes. I believe the Carriage Hill leach field is a little bit further east. So, yeah, I think the neighborhood just wants to be. We want to be certain that the septic that we have is not going to be impacted. And I think we do want to see exactly what the development is, and maybe I don't know if the opportunity is a meeting or it's just through the special permit process, but the plan to have the 4 lots, really, that's not something that was presented to a group of the neighbors. That was just something we found out about recently.
I'd be glad to have any meeting anyone
Yeah,
wants to have. I'm an open book.
I think it's always very helpful when proponents speak to the abutters and come in already having had those conversations. It makes
And I've
things
had it
go
with many of
faster.
the abutters.
Anything else, David?
Nope. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The positives that I could just say is that by eliminating the asphalt, that will help their situation with their community system. Also, the fact that we don't do the 6 units and we only do these 4, essentially one being a duplex, we'd be putting a leaching area near where they have their community system. We won't have anything near that at all. We're going to take everything up to the west where we've already done a community-based system there. So there are some benefits to this program versus alternative programs. I'll have Bill do some outreach with the neighbors and try to put together an information session so that we don't have to get bogged down in that here. We'll probably solve a lot of those issues.
Oh, yeah, it makes things go much faster here when everyone comes in holding hands.
And we'll try to document better the math for the open space, because you're right on those numbers, and we'll make the corrections where we need to.
But I always love the flexible development, so.
And I don't want to I'm not going to say it, but when Zach Bemis came in and he presented the plans to us at planning, they were very complete and very clear. And we're looking forward to seeing that set of plans in the application, because it was a well-done.
High expectations.
Yeah, he did a good job. He did a good job.
Did a very good job. It was very
Next summer, he's going
impressive.
to do a really good job.
Southborough
Like,
educated
in his
engineer.
office, So believe me, we're working on that.
But it was very appreciated. He had
Well,
a
thank
cover
you,
sheet, and he had everything organized and clear.
That's not shocking.
Those great Southborough schools.
There you go. There you go.
Any other questions here? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Exciting.
You're still on deck. You're not dismissed.
He's still in the hot seat.
Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. You too. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item, 2 East Main Street. Proposed office building?
No, I gave you that because that's all I have. But I've been wanting to try to get out of the gates here, and I thought the best way to do this would be to come talk.
Sure.
So we all go on the same page this time around. So I would like to do a mixed-use development to try to revitalize downtown. But I had to provide to Karina was barely the site plan, although part of that site plan package did provide the office building plans as a.
Say your
Oh, I'm sorry.
relationship to the project.
Yep. So again, Peter Bemis, Engineering Design Consultants, and I also have the dubious distinction of owning 2 East Main Street.
Thank you.
And you folks put together a mixed-use bylaw for downtown district, and I would like to try to take advantage of that. When we first looked at this property, that's the vision that we had for it, was to have a residential piece. And we were trying to put that square peg in the round hole, as you know, with trying to say that it was I forgot what we called it, was a hotel motel or something like that. But you've since passed the bylaw, and it works. So to be successful with this, I do see 4 units of residential housing there, so we would be looking at a special permit with you, for sure. The minimum area is 5,000 square feet. We've got 19,765 square feet here. 60 feet of frontage is the minimum. We've got 95 on East Main, 189 on Newton. The front yard setback is 10. We had 10. I don't know if we can use the site plan. Because Colleen's not available now? If you don't mind, it'd just be easier if we work from that. So we had 10.2 on East Main and 10.7 on Newton. And we were a corner lot, so the rear yard really doesn't apply. There's 2 sides. And we had 10.5 to the railroad, and it was significant to go back towards the north. The floor area ratio, I think it allows 40%, and there's a 50% provision as well. I'm trying to remember the way the zoning's worded. But we had a 3,000 square foot footprint, which would, at 3 stories, would allow 9,000 square feet. I don't see us doing anything like that. But there's about 45% open space, so there's still going to be a good chunk of open space with this towards the west. Because I do see the plan going in this direction. But what I saw with the bylaw is that the facade requirement is when you have 80 to 100 feet of frontage, which we have, we would have to have 70%. And that would be 66.5 along East Main, and we're going to be 75. So we're good with that. But what it doesn't recognize is that if you had a corner lot, you're not going to have the building fronting on both streets. And the bylaw doesn't make any distinction. So unfortunately, it's saying that along Newton Street, it's 189.48 feet. At 75%, the building would have to be 142.11 feet. And we're going to be on our short side on Newton Street. So we're at 28% of that requirement. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to invoke that on both streets. And again, it didn't, so I assume I would be asking you for a waiver on that. I would hope that it wouldn't be something that's a variance, because I don't see where the mandate would be to be building a building bigger than I want to build. So I'd like to stick with that 3,000 square foot footprint. I think it works. Where we were 40 feet at 75. It was 75 wide, 40 feet deep. And the height, I still think 2.5 stories probably works, although, and I did bring some architecturals just to kind of talk about what you folks had for a vision. I don't want to see an entrance on East Main Street. I think an entrance on Newton Street makes all the sense in the world. I think East Main Street should be the building. I'd like to stick with that.
That's what the office building was, right?
Yep. And then again, there's an affordable factor in here when you get to 4 units, and it says at least 12.5%, which would be 0.5 units. Okay. So that's the, the one thing that's there, and I was trying to get those values, because you tie it to the 40B formula and whatnot, and I don't see that being a problem, but it's just, the economics of the whole thing, no matter what, has to work. We could put more residential units here, because you allow for it. No matter what, we're going to go forward with the special permit, but I would prefer to try to keep it at 4, because I would rather see some retail space there on the first floor. I just think it's important to have that revitalization and try to anchor that area with some retail opportunity. And at 3,000 feet, it's a good number. We've got enough parking spaces to support it. We have a leaching area that will support it. So that's kind of where we're at. So I would start off with the site plan the way we have it. If there's any shortcomings that you wanted to, and the other thing I was going to say is that, now the road improvements have been done along East Main and the corner of Newton. They didn't go all the way down, but they did do some improvements along that edge. There is the ability to create that plaza space in the front of the building if we were to be creative with how we did the landscaping. So possibly some sort of open type planters, things like that, so that we could introduce some sitting space on the front. And I envision, your bylaw talks about having awnings or having some sort of street front. I have that same vision. So it would be nice to have the ability to have that kind of public space.
You're talking about the guidelines, right?
The
Downtown
guidelines,
district
yeah,
guidelines?
just going through that on the exterior. So the site plan was what you have there. The architectural plans that we had done were of a straight, basically colonial, because it was an office building. It was for an end user, specifically for the amount of space that we had proposed. And that was the look that they had for that. It's a starting point. I've been working on a couple other projects in other towns. I have some I can share with you. One's being built now in Natick. So the first one is all residential. This is I think it's 62 and over is the way the housing was set up. But it's a mixture of clapboard and I think he had some board and batten too on this.
This is something you did?
No, I didn't do
Oh,
the
it's
project
somebody else's
personally. Yeah,
example that you're
we're the
looking at.
engineer on the project, but I was just going to circulate these.
Oh, you're the engineer.
We're the engineer, right.
So where
This
in Natick?
architect, this is in Natick. It's under
Where-
construction now. Union Street, so near the hospital. the
Oh, okay.
Former hospital. We just got permits. We're working on one in Hudson, which is more modern, but I'll provide it to you. But I just want you to at least see, again, what that architect's take was on it. This is the building in Ashland at 21 Main. I think it actually made it to your book. That's the brick building. I don't personally care for the brick part, but it's the kind of scale and scope. It's sort of what we're looking at here. So I'll give you that one. Mashpee Commons, the last two, and that's why I think it's important for you to focus on these, is that, narrow streets, a lot of traffic, controlled speeds, obviously, but sidewalks on both sides. You got 2- and 3-story buildings, and, with awnings, and some areas they have sitting, and some areas they don't, but I'll just give you both of those two. I prefer to see something more clapboard and board and batten look.
I think Mashpee Commons is the mixed-use poster child, I think. I've seen it.
Really fantastic. We have a place in Falmouth, so we go there a lot.
Do you have those in PDF?
I didn't, no, I'm sorry,
You
I
just have
wasn't
pictures.
prepared to do that. I'm sorry, I should have emailed.
I'll scan them and we'll send them.
It's just a
We'll put 'em in,
talking point.
For example, yeah, it's good
Yeah.
to see those, so everyone can refer to it.
But the Mashpee Commons is probably the best example that I can give you. And if you go to Google Maps, you could probably just jump right on Steeple Street, I think is what it's called. And that's the one that I think is where it shows you the 3-story building next to a 2-story building, and
Personally, that Natick, that's very attractive.
Natick,
The Hudson
Mike
thing.
McKay is the architect, and the other one's modern, and that's why
Yeah, I
I
don't know
wanted
if
you
it
to
would
see
fit
it.
in
I
downtown.
don't see that here, but it's going to fit where it's going.
Yeah. Well, so my first comment is, woo-hoo!
Good, all right, good. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Excellent.
Mr. Stein?
So I'm very much in support of the site moving on from its current state. It's been in the current state way too long.
Agreed, thank you.
And it's, we're way past the point where, this needs to happen. So you do have favorable zoning now because of the downtown district.
Right.
I think that the main thing is to get this done as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So, do what you have to do, please.
Yep.
To make this happen. The code is, right there for you. Everything's laid out. I think this board is amenable to granting you, the flexibility that you need.
Okay.
Within reason. So just don't push too hard and we'll just get this done.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. That's it.
Yep, thank you.
So, Mr. Bemis, yoo-hoo, this is like woohoo. I will say that in the conversations I've had with citizens, people have said, please help get this developed. And I know we haven't in the past, we haven't had a lot of time with the MBTA to be able to do outreach. And it was a tickler on the back of my head to reach out and be like, hey, can we have a conversation? So I'm really excited about this. And I know that a lot of the challenges we faced prior to this overlay were just kind of the size, the trying to kind of conform with what was there. Now we have design guidelines. I know Karina is always willing to help. I'm willing to have conversations too to say what would look great. And I think the examples that you brought, I think Mashpee is like the poster child for it. And it would be wonderful to have something there. So I'm right in line with Mr. Stein. We are totally amenable to make whatever happens. And if you need other conversations, I'm totally willing to be a person to just brainstorm with. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Maria?
Hi, Peter, thank you. And I have just a question. My question is on septic. So last time I spoke to you about this, I was on the ZBA, and we didn't have the bylaw. So now we're in a completely different position, but I did want to ask you about septic.
Yep, so we have the Board of Health approval, we'd have to renew that, but it will handle basically the 3,000 square feet of retail and the 4 it would be 4 single-bedroom apartments. That's what we can support here. Be nice to do more. There isn't the ability to do more, and until something gets done on a community basis, that would be the only way you could do more. So it would be a holding position. There are some creative ways to handle effluent flow. And possibly some of the uses that you will allow in your bylaw could fit. Right now, I'm just going to stick with the retail because that's what we can get done. And if somebody wants to come forward and propose some retail use that requires a special permit, we'd have to come back to you again for that. I'm not going to try to do a use permit with you when I don't even know what's out there and who would want to be here.
Yeah.
If it happens, we'll come back and if we can make it work with the Board of Health, we would make it work.
Thank you.
Ms. Braccio?
I don't know what else I can say, Peter, other than yoo-hoo! Woo-hoo, one more time.
All right.
This is, you have a full community support behind you on this, and
Great.
as Marnie said, anything any of us can do to help kind of move this along. I agree, Jesse, I think people would love to see this happen tomorrow, so,
I've been here sooner if I haven't been so busy. It's just been crazy. Consulting work has just been overwhelming of late, and it's unfortunate, so.
well, we're glad you're here. We're glad we're having the conversation. When do you anticipate potentially, Peter, actually filing?
I was hoping that I could just start right away, honestly. I'm that prepared. So I'm trying to clear some things off of my plate and not take in some other assignments so I could focus on this. So I would hope that I can file before the end of the year, for sure.
And if anybody felt the ground shaking, that was everybody in town saying, woo-hoo! So, thank you, Peter.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for this, right now, there's been a lot, I've been accommodating a lot of other things happening in downtown, and we actually were gonna go there to get rid of some of those millings, and the gas company decided to take refuge on the property, so, it's just, you pick your fights, and I pretty much said, just don't be disrespectful, and they clean up when they leave, but they were there for a few weeks, and so we still got to get on it, but at the same time, it's been frustrating on my end, too.
And I will end with Peter. I think you see the excitement on this board to, get this project going and work
good.
with you on it, so.
All right, no, thank you, appreciate it.
So since you're here, I just want to make sure we're on the same page, that the application requirements are a site plan and also the special permit for the site plan in the downtown district. It's the same like business village district.
Yeah.
You have
See the
this-
layering.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's the same set of plans. It's
Understood.
just-
And that's why I just wanted to be upfront with you about the special, I do see the need for the 4 units than to just try to say, okay, I'm going to do this without doing that, to avoid process. I'm not concerned about going through process with you and checking all the boxes and getting it done right. It's just the one thing I think would be important, that I would go back to the Mashpee Commons, is the fact that landscape-wise, you might be able to get a tree to fit or something, but I think the planters, having something physically on the ground and keeping the plaza effect may be more effective at the end of the day. That's all. So I'm probably going to go in that direction to start with, and if there's pushback, we'll deal with it. And then awnings, they overhanging, and you have that front yard setback. I'm not sure how the building inspector would view that, if he's going to say the awning is part of the front yard setback requirement. So, we'd have to have a conversation. So I was going to start talking
Yeah,
to
I think there's
Chris,
something in the definitions too.
that we could work that out, right? Because I think that's an important look and feel to this whole thing, is I think the awnings are going to be very important to set a tone for what you see coming for the rest of the downtown area eventually over time. So, all right, well, thank you.
You'll be the beginning, and then things will go crazy in the downtown.
For everyone's sake. All right. Have a
Thank
great-
you very much. Very exciting.
Thanks, Peter. If you have questions, let me know. We'll get you going, okay? Amy, I'm going to scan these and pass, and then send them to everybody.
yeah.
Is that all right?
Yep. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item, proposed zoning amendments. I don't think we have anything
No,
much
not too
further.
We just have another meeting scheduled with the working group.
So we met with Chris Lund, Marguerite,
Lara,
and Al, and we talked about what the planning board put forth. Chris Lund would like to relax the parking requirements and allow for like shared parking and banked parking. So we're meeting again on the 4th.
So
and Leo.
is this going back, remember when the EDC came in and suggested that we make Route 9 more friendly for businesses? In terms of, is that what we're talking about specifically, or?
This is specific to zoning changes within our code, but still, when Andrew Dennington was here talking about the one-stop to have a consultant look at Route 9 and suggest zoning code changes on Route 9 to make it more viable. That's still happening as far as I know. It just hasn't
But that's
happened
separate from
yet.
this?
That's separate.
So can you just, the parking, they want to make the spaces smaller?
No, just that, how much parking we require.
The density.
And seeing as,
I mean, we can grant waivers to that, or as it is,
can we?
case by case. I can't think off the top of my head. I have this feeling like we have before.
Let me look at my notes. It said here that,
I'm not trying to be dismissive. I'm just trying to get at, what's the goal and.
was to relax the density of the parking, like reduce pavement in town. So if you require one space per 350 square feet, you might reduce that for office space. So I think that's what he was getting at. So in the parking code, there's like a list of categories. If it's residential, this is what you require. If it's commercial, if it's assembly, if it's a doctor's office, if it's a regular office, there are all these calculations. And I think it's to ease up on that. And then also there was discussion about banked parking.
This is obviously for commercial usage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, more so. Because in, like for in the MBTA
Okay.
communities, it was a lesser.
So that's it, the parking? Was that the only thing?
Well, the parking, and then we had discussed the uses in the industrial park, allowing more, like the gym and fitness center and retail uses, other things in industrial park that aren't allowed now.
Like the other business zones.
That sounds good.
The special permit, to have the planning board be the special permit granting authority on projects that require site plan review. So it'd be a streamline, one-stop shop. What was the other? Was there anything else?
Yeah, there's, we knew that the ADUs were coming, so
Oh, the
that was gonna
ADUs,
be
that
a
was
heavy
on there.
push.
Yeah.
A little bit, not as big as the MBTA, but, and we wanted to keep it down to maybe 1 or 2, maximum 3 warrant articles at a time, smaller steps. As opposed to big efforts. Change small things to make it better.
And so my assignment was to read all the parking zoning codes that, and I haven't done that yet. But I'm going to go home tonight and write a draft ADU bylaw, and then I'll get right on it.
Priorities.
Yeah, so I think what's funny is that when you look at the industrial park district, I think my worry around the language was it was written in 93. So like uses permitted up to 50,000 square foot, newspaper, job, printing, and publishing. Like that just doesn't exist anymore. So it's really like bringing office, bank, an office building, wholesale distribution and storage within a building other than a solid waste transfer station, scientific research and development, including, and it goes on, and that's it. And then, so it's not really current. So like the problem with our language is it's very, there's just, how do we bring in certain things? I had reached out to Alan Belniak, who's also in our waiting room too. He doesn't have a hand raised, but just to kind of get perspective, because he also, he lobbied to be on the planning board. I think it would be important to bring his and its constituents' perspective to a lot of this was about our outdated language in our zoning code. And he pointed to a couple of resources that we might look at that group different, like more current ways that other states and other resources group types of businesses that are more like let's skate to where the puck will be versus where it is today, right? Like how do we future plan and really think about planning? So I can also provide some thoughts around what I was hoping for, but I guess the question is when you think about zoning bylaws, how do you do it so it's not overly cumbersome for our town, but that we allow for more updated language so that it makes sense. And I think makes sense and logical would be much more low-lying fruit and just changing that type of language versus some major overhaul. And then maybe we shoot for that later. But I guess that low-lying fruit is what we're looking for in that updated language. So I can help contribute to what my thoughts were specifically in that industrial zone.
So I can share the schedule of uses from 2012 when the rewrite. So that's more current, although it still didn't allow a lot of things in industrial park. But I don't think we ever really, except for Ken's, really got that industrial intensive use within industrial park. Anyone else?
So we're meeting on November 4th again with that group. And there's no hands raised.
No hands raised, okay. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item, 352 Turnpike, proposed 40B, mass housing, requests for comments. They want comments by the 24th.
Yeah. We did attend the site walk a couple weeks ago, which was pretty helpful. And they explained that there was going to be another component, a site plan component of maybe a restaurant or another retail or something. There was an extra building that they were going to put in a separate project related to that.
I think it shows on those plans.
Yeah.
So my biggest point on this was the markers on the, I guess it would be the eastern side of the footprint of the building. Although on this plan, this is a little bit different than how I remember the site.
So that's the current office building right there.
That's the current building. Okay, well, that would be the reason. And then,
There's the proposed.
He's proposing six stories.
okay, yeah. So it's really, it's pushed up right now, up against, you know, they marked it in such a way that there would be a lot of screening left undisturbed in theory. Do you both remember that?
Yeah, so they said that, but if you look at this building, it's right up
It's
against the
not possible.
property line.
Right.
Yeah.
So what they said, what I remember either Mr. Ferris or somebody on his team saying is, if there was something, if they get it to perk, or if it's possible physically to move the building away from that, they will. So I think that we should include, I'm not being very articulate because I'm tired, but if we can somehow work that into our comments, that would be great.
I think one of the things you're referring to is that their proposed septic locations.
I
is
think
what
that was the
was
reason that it had to
constraining the
be,
site.
yeah. Wasn't that the reason that it had to be
I
that
think so, that's why they're
far
showing it.
back?
So
Right.
this is where
Yeah,
they're showing
if
it.
you go to sheet D,
Right, and that's why the
Five or
perking is relevant to where the building is ultimately located.
right, because you have a septic for the 40B, you have a septic for the remaining office building, and then there's a septic proposed for the small restaurant.
I mean, ironically, this is, to me, out of the 340Bs, you know, not including Park Central, which I don't consider to be in the pipeline anymore right now, but of the three, this would be my favorite, personally. So really, just as it is at the moment, it's the location of the building and more clarity on the other restaurant structure. because we don't really have that defined yet. I think that would be a separate. My recollection from the site visit was this was being brought to our attention because we happened to be there, but that's not going to be part of the submission.
No, it was an amenity that they were offering up to the town and sort of.
Right, but I think
With
that
the
that's a
40.
separate site plan.
It
review
is.
And everything. It's not going to be part of the 40B.
No.
Right, okay. That's it for me. Thanks.
Because they do show the lots on, where they have 3 lots shown. Or they have 1 lot.
Ms. Houlihan.
Thank you. I will continue to just advocate that 6 stories is just not feasible in the town of Southborough. And particularly a size like that. We have 1 ladder truck, number 1, and number 2 is it sets precedent, and we've had the conversation with the proponent. It'd be great if they would have come in at 3 stories, or even 2 separate buildings with 3 stories to be able to support that. So I think the 6 stories is a challenge. I think the right at the property line is concerning, as we've already talked about. And the question around, I didn't do the site plan, the site walk, so I don't have perspective on what what it would all look like. I know we have mock-ups of what the inside of the building would look like, but I didn't think we got mock-ups of what the outside of the building would look like. So that's really all I have to comment right now, unfortunately.
Ms. Maria.
Yeah, I have to agree, the 6 stories is not really, I don't think we can support that. And just what's very interesting is, this is right next to Madison Place, and those are our largest, tallest buildings in town, and they're 4 stories. Still too tall, in my opinion. I like Marnie's proposal for 2 buildings with 3 stories each, but yeah, that's my main point, I think, with this project, is the heights.
Ms. Braccio.
Thank you. I also think that this is like a great location, and I think when Madison Place went in, the process went so quickly and so easily, again, just based on location. So I think there's a really good chance of this probably going through before the other ones are completed. But I have the same worry, I worry we're setting precedent with a 6-story building. I think it behooves us to at least advocate for, something on a much smaller scale than that. I do think, again, it's a perfect location for a taller building, maybe even a 4-story to match Madison Place. But I also share the concern on the 6-story, Mimi. Thank you.
Thank you. So I agree on the 6-story. The only thing is that lot, the elevations of it, it's like down in a hole, in like Madison Place is way up here. So it would still be, dwarfed by Madison Place, because they're way up on the hill. And I think that it would be helpful for them if they showed renderings on what that would look like. But I still think that it's right on the property line. They need some screening for the residents on, from Route 9, even though there's a wetland there. I don't think, it's not thickly forested. But I think it's good to mention the 6 stories that we don't have it any place else in town. Trying to think of what else. And I think that something mentioned by Conservation Commission, like the detention basin that they are suggesting that they remove, is a resource area because it was in before 19 or something. So there's a lot of wetlands on this site. And my other question would be about ADA compliance.
We do have 1 hand raised in the attendees, Kristen Lebald.
Sure.
If you're ready.
Yep.
Colleen, there she is, already.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I don't know if you can answer this, but it is.
If you could just
somewhat-
introduce yourself, Kristen.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Kristen Laval, 12 Southwood Drive. I'm a part of a few committees, but I'm speaking as a citizen tonight. It's a really question, and if you can answer it, it is somewhat related because it's the same developer who, I tried to find the latest, who also is building on 120 Turnpike Road and also wanted to exceed the number of stories being able to be built. I think 5 was the last that we were at. I tried to do some homework, and I apologize, I'm not at every, I can't be at every meeting, but the last I saw was something in August about a balloon test. The reason why I'm asking, I'm curious what the status of that project is it seems like this developer is consistently coming in and asking to go beyond, what we have as our limit for stories, trying to reset the precedents. And sometimes it feels like, okay, well, we're going to come at 6, so maybe we can get them to negotiate down to 4. Again, I'm saying this perhaps not fully educated. I appreciate that. So in the context of this conversation, are you able to give an update on what's going on with 120 Turnpike Road, who I believe is owned by the same organization?
They're still at 5 stories, and that building height is set to be discussed on the 29th before the ZBA. That's still a point of contention.
Okay, great. So we probably want to get the word, well, not you, but as citizens, we want to get the word out about that. Thank you.
Yes, definitely, because the proponent mentioned there was no one in the room, so everybody's fine with it at the last meeting.
Yeah, I know. All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, no other hands raised? So there aren't a lot of comments. If you want me to draft the letter, I'll do that. So you guys are awfully busy and you've done.
Yeah, I'll be writing a bylaw, so that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, I'll get that drafted, and if I send it to Mimi to review, is that sufficient, and then follow up to the rest of you after it's done? Okay.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda, planners report.
Okay. Make this quick. So Colleen's been working on a schedule for next year's planning board meeting. I can give you, I didn't review it with her yet at all, but I can give you a copy before you leave if you want to take it with you, or I can email it to you. Oh, you do have it? Okay. So take a look at it for next meeting to see if there's any comments of changing anything. Again, I haven't looked at it myself yet, so it hasn't been vetted.
So when we set this schedule, do we then reserve the room for all those days?
We try. We can only reserve virtual rooms like within 60 days. And then we try to get the McAuliffe room pretty much set as much as we can. I thought they had already all been reserved, and then when I looked again, it was gone. So, but I didn't take a screenshot or anything. I can't attest to it. My memory just said, I thought they were all reserved. So, I don't know. Sorry, I turned it off. The next meeting's at the Public Safety Building. Same time, it's just unusual because the other room is booked, this room is booked by the Select Board. So I just want to put that out there. Now, quickly here. No. Okay. Quick update on the on-call consulting. Mimi and I were part of a group that interviewed 3 potential consultants. We're just finalizing some information and checking references, and then we'll be able to present the information to the planning board on November 4th, so that the planning board can make a recommendation to the town administrator, select board, as the town administrator signs that contract. Just so you're aware.
Just one, I was concerned because on the select board agenda for tomorrow, there was a procurement appeal for 250 40B, and that was one of the consultants we just interviewed has been or is about to be awarded that peer review contract for 250. And so I sent an email to Lara saying, are they conflicted or not qualified? Because I think that the committee interviewing should know that. And then it turned out that that was incorrect, and it was for the Beehive at 250. And the appeal was of Fuss and O'Neill. So supposedly, that's not going to be heard tomorrow because it wasn't noticed in time. They changed it this morning, and it's a different project, a different peer review, a different board, so it's not really a Scribner's error on the agenda.
So to the
But
best,
it's not that consultant that we interviewed.
no. So to the best of our knowledge, that won't be heard tomorrow at the select board, or they're going to push it to the next meeting?
That's what I was told, or else they'll be violating open meeting law.
Okay. I want to point out that Marnie's been on top of notifying residents on the MBTA communities information ongoing, and in case any projects pop up. So that's been working well, and I think a lot of people have been happy about that. On the select board's agenda for tomorrow is Mark Davis is coming in to discuss 40R development at the MBTA station. So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out, because that's additional, I don't want to say burden, but there's, impacts to that as well. So there's information on that. The townhouse is going to have a network outage on November 18th. Just so you know, we don't have a meeting scheduled. That's going to be from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. To do some upgrades in internet access accommodations. So just be aware. I don't think that'll be impacting us very much. 120 Turnpike Road, a new hearing date is scheduled for the 40B, October 29th. Mimi just mentioned that. Again, the next planning board meeting on November 4th is going to be at the Public Safety Building. We'll be putting a sign on the door here at the townhouse and up here at planning to make sure people know if they accidentally come here to go to the location. I believe the ZBA granted a permit at 120 Turnpike for a parking variance. So when they come back for their modification to site plan after the 40B, that'll be a factor there. I think I distributed to you the example, the information about the Hudson ADU would be a good example, so you have an email on that. Melissa sent around an email from Conservation Break Hill Farm dump update that talks about what they're doing and how that's impacting, and just information about it if you want to see that. I got an email today that Central Street is opening tonight. Street. And then lastly, I have a letter here that I received from Pamela Milionis, a resident who was asking us that we consider naming a future roadway one resident stands out, Richard Dick P. Curran. For decades, Dick and his wife Eileen owned and operated the spa. And so she wrote a letter, which I'll scan tomorrow because it came in today, and send it to you requesting, I know in the past when someone wanted a street name, that when a subdivision comes forward or there's an opportunity to do that, maybe it's asked of the applicant to consider that name. More strongly suggested. So, but I'll get that to you tomorrow. And then I think we have 2 sets of meeting minutes. That's it for planners report.
So I'd like to make a motion that the planning board approve the meeting minutes from September 9th, 2024.
Second?
For discussion,
September 9th.
line 130
Line 130.
is 3 Killam. There's a blank there for, it's 3 Killam.
3 Killam.
And then line 199, I think we should put right in there that the board agreed to add an additional meeting.
Line
199.
199. Put in there, the planning board agreed
To add an additional meeting.
to add an additional meeting, okay?
That's it. Any other discussion?
I just have one, that my name as listed at the top of the minute, all the minutes says Deb.
Oh, it should be
You can-
Deborah.
Deborah or Debbie.
What's your preference?
Debbie is fine.
Debbie, okay, I've never seen it say Deb, I'm sorry, I didn't notice.
No, that's okay. It's probably been, it's been like that.
That's
What
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's a,
It's reserved for him.
He's doing some side work. Oh, man.
Okay. Anything else on those?
No.
So I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes?
Demuria, yes?
Russia, yes.
And I'd like to move that the planning board accept the meeting minutes from September 30th, 2024.
Second?
For discussion, line 34,
Line 34.
deemed invalid by Massachusetts Appeals Court or Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court.
Deemed invalid by Massachusetts
Appeals Court or
Appeals Court or
Supreme Judicial Court.
Supreme Judicial
10 o'clock's the limit.
Court, okay.
And then line 47, that is capitalized, it doesn't need to be.
Oh, goodness, okay.
That's it. Any other discussion?
Yeah, so the adjournment, I don't believe we had a full board at that time.
I was there. I came back in.
No, the adjournment at 11:30 PM at the end of town meeting.
Oh, so
I
there's,
think that Ms. Houlihan had left. Am I correct? I don't think that you participated in that vote, and that this is an error.
so it was Debbie,
Am I could be mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
No, I know, but I don't remember you, I remember you being,
Gone?
yeah.
I don't remember. Well, I don't remember
Okay.
anything, so.
If I'm mistaken, I apologize, but I could have sworn that there was only 4 of us at that point in the night. But nobody else seems to corroborate that, so
I don't remember.
so who wasn't there?
it's not a big deal.
You all were
We're
there?
all present,
Yep.
but he's saying I wasn't there to.
For the
second.
adjournment.
And I probably, if that's what you remember, I don't recall, to be honest.
Well, let's let it go. It's not a big deal. I was kind of hoping somebody would say, oh, yeah, that's right.
That was a long night.
So leave it as is.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so we need a motion and a,
So, and then with the sunset clause on line 56,
line 56.
the planning board supported that sunset clause, but we never actually moved on town meeting floor to amend. So do we need to put something in the minutes to that effect, or this is more of a question for our chair?
So what is it, we can put something in the minutes that supported if deemed necessary or something?
Something to, yeah, I would prefer,
Okay.
because we didn't actually amend, and there is no sunset clause,
No.
so.
So, Mr. Stein, that the planning board support the sunset clause if, so the motion was, that.
Mr. Stein, that the planning board support the sunset clause if deemed necessary on town meeting floor.
If deemed necessary on the town
And of course, the
meeting
record will reflect that we didn't do it.
floor, right.
Yes.
And there's special town meeting minutes as well that will show that. Right? Town clerk has the meeting minutes of that. too. Okay,
So move to support as amended.
okay.
Second?
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brashear, yes.
Excellent. And then, the next meeting, November 4th at the Public Safety Building, 32 Corderville Road, and followed by December 2nd. I think we probably should update the, or make a note of it on our calendar on the website, as people go to that it's not November 25th. It's December 2nd.
And we have no meetings in between? at
Well,
this
November
time?
4th is like a meeting, it's like a week and a half away.
Right, no, I'm talking about between the 4th and December 2nd. Okay.
No, we do have a holiday in between.
Was there a
and
reason why we don't have?
There's 2 holidays in between. Yes.
Well, we had the 4th and the 25th, and then we moved the 25th
Right.
to the 2nd.
Right,
So we
right, right,
had
right.
It's the Monday
every
of
other week.
Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we figure some people go away. And then
Motion,
December 16th. Okay.
motion to adjourn?
Second?
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brashear, yes.